Chapter 1604, The Spirit King's Identity. The Spirit King and Jian Chen shot off like meteors at the speed of lightning. They both vomited blood and paled, having both become severely injured. They flew off in the same direction. Jian Chen had used a sword technique and erupted with the true speed of lightning, but since he was moving too fast, he had lost control. On the other hand, the Spirit King was struck by Jian Chen at an incomparable speed, sending him flying. The Spirit King had temporarily lost control of his body. Boom! With a thunderous sound, Jian Chen and the Spirit King collided with the moon. The celestial body trembled as dust and sand were kicked up into space. Two huge, bottomless holes appeared, piercing the entire piece of rock. At the same time, a terrifying shockwave spread out with them the holes at the center. The shockwave flooded the surroundings and reached most of the moon. Oh my God, Sovereign Jian Chen and the Spirit King have gone to the moon to fight. I can see dust being kicked up from the moon, that's just unbelievable. Sovereign Jian Chen and the Spirit King are actually so fast that they've crossed such a tremendous distance in such a short moment and arrived on the moon. Throughout history, rarely anyone has set foot on the moon, because it's just too far away from the Tianyuan continent. Most Saint Emperors would not even go there because they can't absorb the energy of the world in outer space. Once they run out of Saint Force, it's extremely difficult to recover out there. Within the past million years, no one aside from Fairy Haoyu has gone to the moon. The various experts of the four races all sighed in surprise above the Tianyuan continent. They all looked at Jian Chen in admiration and yearned to become like him one day. A distance that was basically impossible for Saint Emperors to traverse had been crossed in a single moment by Sovereign Jian Chen. All of them eagerly dreamed for such strength. The moon had lost all sense of peace by now. The entire place shook and cracked as mountains collapsed. It seemed like the world was ending. The disturbance caused by the impact was just shocking. Two extremely powerful sword intents permeated the moon, conflicting with one another unintentionally. The conflict caused space to distort and collapse. Jian Chen and the Spirit King hovered in the air. They were both in horrible conditions and covered in blood. Although they were heavily injured, they showed no signs of weakness at all. Their eyes were cold and filled with great battle intent. Jian Chen's body was enveloped by a layer of milky white light. He rapidly healed by using his Class 9 Radiant Saint Force origin energy and his chaotic body, so his injuries quickly disappeared. On the other hand, the Spirit King did not recover as quickly as Jian Chen. His eyes immediately narrowed as he watched Jian Chen's wounds close up at a visible rate. He immediately consumed a recovery pill before aggressively charging at Jian Chen. Jian Chen and the Spirit King engaged in an intense battle on the moon. Both of them used their full strength without hiding anything at all. They used various powerful sword techniques and secret techniques time and time again, colliding many times on the moon. Every single attack was devastating. Booms constantly rang out. The moon was devastated. The moon, which normally glowed bright in the sky, had lost all its color. It had become dull as all the dust drifted around it, hiding its luster. Whether it was the sainthood experts, the puny mortal realm fighters, or even the millions of ordinary people, they all raised their heads to look at the sky to see something that had never happened in the past. Jian Chen and the Spirit King's battle had reached the climax. It was as intense as it had ever been. Strands of sword chi crisscrossed, destroying everything. Huge, bottomless cracks appeared on the ground, weaving between each other like webs. As they fought from one side of the moon to the other, countless holes were created, completely damaging the moon. As their huge, resplendent strands of sword chi collided, the holy moon before their feet finally gave way, splitting in half. Look, the moon's shattered. The moon has actually shattered. Oh my God, Sovereign Jian Chen and the Spirit King have actually broken the moon. Sovereign Jian Chen and the Spirit King's strength is actually so mind-boggling. This is just unbelievable. all the sainthood experts and origin realm experts became stunned when the moon split in half. Their faces were filled with utter disbelief. When they saw the moon split, all of them felt extremely taken aback. At that moment, many of them felt like the world was ending. Even heavenly bodies could be destroyed during a battle. They struggled to imagine just how terrifying Jian Chen's battle against the Spirit King was. The moon was no smaller than the planet they inhabited, yet their battle split it in half. Did that not mean that they possessed the power to destroy the planet the Tianyuan continent lay on? At that moment, all the sainthood experts among the four races had never felt more admiration and reverence for Jian Chen. What they felt completely surpassed what they had felt for the sea goddess, the winged tiger god, Tai Ta, and so on. Jian Chen and the Spirit King stood separate halves of the moon. They were in an even worse shape now. They were so heavily injured that they would send chills down the backs of people after just a single glance. The Spirit King's body was covered with vicious slashes. There were 4 wounds traveling through his body. A huge chunk of his flesh was missing. There was a fist-sized hole on his resolute face, passing through to the back of his head. Fortunately, the hole had not reached his soul. However, Jian Chen's condition was even more severe than the Spirit King. His left arm was completely gone while his right arm had become a bloody mess. He only had 2 fingers left on his right hand, having lost the other 3. The injuries on his body were the most severe. He had almost been cleaved in 2 near the waist, leaving a third of his flesh holding it all together. He had completely lost feeling in one of his legs. There were many piercing wounds on his chest as well, completely destroying his organs. He had even lost a third of his head, only leaving behind a single eye. He looked extremely ferocious. If the fighters from the Tianyuan continent saw Jian Chen's miserable appearance, they would definitely faint. His injuries were incredible. If it were not for his chaotic body, he would have collapsed long ago. I never thought that your strength would actually grow to such a level, to be able to force me to a point like this. Jian Chen, you really are worthy of being rumored as the youngest genius on the Jianghu. Even when you've come to a higher world, you're still as glorious as you were in the past. What confuses me is why you were so weak when I first met you. The Spirit King stared at Jian Chen with mixed feelings. What I least expected was that the strongest Spirit King in all of the world of Forsaken Saints history was my opponent from my last life, Duguqiubai. Do I call you the Spirit King or Duguqiubai? Jian Chen replied gruffly, but he was not calm at all inside. The Spirit King gently sighed, Duguqiubai is not my name, but a title that the people from the Jianghu bestowed to me. You better call me Shen Jian instead. That's my real name. Jian Chen, in our past life, you killed my only disciple, so we engaged in a battle to the death and died together. In this world, our strengths are similar as well. If we continue like this, it'll probably lead to the same outcome as before. Why don't we call it a draw today? Reminiscence filled Jian Chen's eyes and his emotions became mixed. In his past life, he was from a completely different generation compared to Duguqiubai, and they would never have come in contact with one another except for a person called Lu Kaiyun. He was Duguqiubai's only disciple and a wastrel. He had provoked Jian Chen and clashed with him, dying to Jian Chen's hands. The battle between Jian Chen and Duguqiubai had all been caused by this person called Lu Kaiyun. We can call it a draw, but your world of Forsaken Saints will never be able to touch the Tianyuan continent from now on. I will only allow Origin Realm experts to pass on to the Saints' world, said Jian Chen. The Tianyuan continent held great value to him and was also his bottom line. He would not cross it for anyone. We can discuss that in the future. You're even more injured than me right now, so even with your rapid recovery rate, no one will benefit if we keep on fighting. We might end up dying together once again, replied the Spirit King. He did not agree to Jian Chen's proposal, clearly intending on taking up a territory in this world as well. I'm very injured, but if we keep fighting, I might not necessarily die. If that's not enough, I have the ability to flee, and after a few more dozen years, I can refine the profound sword qi. Killing you won't be a problem, Jianchen coldly responded. Well, that splits the heavens has 3 moves in total. I've only grasped the first one right now. If I can use the second one as well, killing you would be piece of cake today as well. I think it's best to call it a draw, and we can discuss everything else in the future, said the Spirit King. He was confident and did not give in at all. Duguqiubai, may I ask you how long you've been cultivating? Jianchen stared at the Spirit King with piercing eyes. He was furious about how the Spirit King did not want to give up his intentions of gaining a piece of territory, tempting him to begin fighting again. Over 800 years, said the Spirit King. You've cultivated for over 800 years and this is all you've achieved. I've cultivated for less than a century. If you think you'll still be my opponent in the future, we can call it a draw today, but your world will not set another foot in mine from today on, said Jianchen. The Spirit King's eyes narrowed. A sliver of uncontainable shock was present in the gaze he sent toward Jianchen. Chapter 1605, Breaking Free. What? You say you've only been cultivating for less than 100 years? The Spirit King's voice was filled with shock. Even with his mental fortitude, he struggled to maintain his composure. His heart churned. He had used at least 8 whole centuries to go from a mortal to what he now possessed, but he was still named the most outstanding genius in all of the world of Forsaken Saints history, crowned as the strongest Spirit King. However, Jianchen had used less than 100 years to reach his level and fight him to a stalemate, which filled him with disbelief. Going from a mortal to godhood in just 100 years was very startling, even though he had only just reached the lowest levels of godhood. Even in the saints' world, such a terrifying growth rate would cause a huge commotion. I never thought that when we killed each other, you ended up surviving just like me, being transported to foreign worlds that neighbored each other. What has surprised me even more is that you actually successfully reincarnated several years earlier than me. Jianchen's feelings were mixed as he sighed emotionally inside. The Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints had weighed on his shoulders like a mountain in the past, almost to the point that he found it suffocating. He had even treated the Spirit King as the greatest enemy in his life, but he had never thought that the Spirit King came from the same world as him. Jianchen was amazed. He was amazed by how anything could happen in the universe. Jianchen had even guessed that the reason why Duguqiubai had reincarnated with him was because of the sword spirits. He could still remember the extremely bright azure and violet lights when he closed his eyes for the last time. They were resplendent and dazzling and covered the entire sky. Perhaps when the sword spirits awakened back then, the space and laws in that lower world had been influenced since their powers were too great, reincarnating Duguqiubai as well. After all, the energy of the world he lived in the past was so thin that only mortals existed. There was not a single cultivator. It could not compare to the Tianyuan continent. It was obviously impossible for a world like that to be tough at all, so the weakened sword spirits could easily tear through it. Jianchen was not very surprised by their great age difference. After all, when he and Duguqiubai were reincarnated, neither of them knew just how long they had spent crossing through space. Duguqiubai might have only reincarnated several decades, centuries, or even millennia after he had died, while Jianchen had reincarnated even later than that. This was similar to the sayings and rumors regarding reincarnation among mortals. No one would know just how much time would pass the moment someone died to when they started their next life. It could be a single moment, a few millennia, several dozen millennia, or even longer. Jianchen, I am indeed weaker than you in terms of talent, but I must obtain a piece of land in this world. The environment of your Tianyuan continent cannot compare to the world of Forsaken Saints. If my world is hell, then yours would be heaven. As the current Spirit King, I must think of my people. If you insist that the people from my world cannot set foot on the Tianyuan continent, there's only one thing I can do, and that's to defeat you." The Spirit King stared at Jianchen deeply. He was extremely determined. Although he would venture to the Saints' world in the end, only Origin Realm experts could go there. He still had many weaker clansmen in the world of Forsaken Saints, so before he left, he needed to find them a suitable place to inhabit. As a result, the Spirit King and Jianchen did not behave like they were close even though they came from the same place. They both only considered their own races. Jianchen's eyes grew colder. He said, "If that's the case, we can only continue our battle until someone is defeated." However, soon after Jianchen spoke, a terrifying pulse appeared deep in outer space. It possessed enough power to shake the world, immediately causing Jianchen's face to change. He suddenly shifted his eyes to look in that direction. He stared in the direction where the Yinyang Saint Rock lay, but because it was so far away, Jianchen was unable to see what was happening. All he could do was sense the great formation in the depths of space. At the same time, the Spirit King's eyes narrowed. He stared into the depths as well. He was stern since he, too, could feel the extremely powerful pulse from the distant region of space. It made him shiver inside. All the other Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent sensed it as well. Their attention all gathered in the same direction and they became extremely stern. They had no idea what was happening, but they all felt their hearts jump when the pulse appeared. They also felt chills run down their spine. Chills rarely ever happened to them. In fact, they had never experienced such a visceral feeling before. The evil power hidden within the Yinyang Saint Rock has actually broken free. How did it break free so soon? Jianchen's face became extremely ugly. When he had left with Shangguan Mu'er, there was still a shell of the Yinyang Saint Rock, which formed a jail that sealed in the evil power. He had estimated that the remaining rock could keep the evil power trapped for a few more years, up to a few dozen more years, enough time for him to deal with the threat of the foreign world and even refine his profound sword qi. Unexpectedly, the remaining rock only kept the evil power trapped for less than a day. The evil power had absorbed all of the energy and had broken free. I can sense extremely dense origin energy in the depths of space. No wonder there's no origin energy in this world. It's all there. Where is this place? The Spirit King asked. He was not curious at all and was grim instead, because he could feel an extremely intense sense of threat from the pulse of energy. Quick, heal. Heal as soon as you can. We don't have much time, Jianchen said with a deep voice. His voice was rather hurried. At that moment, he became extremely grim as well. He immediately began to heal as quickly as he could. The Spirit King stared at Jianchen before taking out a pill and consuming it. He sat down where he was to heal. What terrifying thing is hidden there? The Spirit King asked. His wounds were also recovering rapidly but at a slightly slower rate. Chapter 1606, Ceasefire. There's an extremely evil power and it's grown to a terrifying state. You should be able to sense how powerful it is, Jianchen said in a gruff voice. The Spirit King was silent. He arrived on the shattered moon and sat down on half of a mountain with its top cleaved off. His gaze was sharp as he stared into the depths of space. He unintentionally let his powerful origin energy pulse and his pressure permeate the surroundings, causing space to twist and shake. I originally thought that the evil power would need a few years to break free at the very least, but I was wrong. I never thought it would break free so quickly. I have never seen something so evil. Once it appears, all the life in this world will definitely become extinct. No one will be able to survive. If we don't stop it, it will bring a calamity, and it might even destroy the entire world if it's powerful enough, said Jianchen. He sat down on the other half of the moon as he stared at the Spirit King. He added, Shenzhen, your world and mine are connected, so the evil power won't only threaten the Tianyuan continent. Even your world of forsaken saints won't be able to avoid this calamity, so I suggest that we call a ceasefire between our worlds and deal with the evil power first. What do you think? This is your world's problem. It's got nothing to do with mine. You're not wrong about how the tunnel connects our worlds, but the evil presence is so powerful that it might not necessarily be able to pass through and threaten us. If push comes to pull, we'll just give up on any territory in this world and try to seal off the tunnel, the Spirit King emotionlessly replied. Shenzhen, it'll definitely have significant impact on your world. The presence of the evil power is so great that none of us will be able to defeat it individually, and regarding the tunnel, it only limits fighters. The evil power isn't a fighter. Its creation is beyond the scope of our understanding. It's such a special existence that the tunnel might not be able to keep it at bay. And even if you do seal up the tunnel, won't my people still be able to smash through your seal forcefully? What will you do then? Jian Chen replied sternly. A gleam of light flickered through the Spirit King's eyes when Jian Chen approached the end of what he was saying. The Spirit King responded, "Are you threatening me? Originally, there was a powerful seal between our worlds, but you forcefully smashed through it. Why is it that only you are allowed to smash through our seals while we can't do the same to yours? The evil power doesn't just threaten us, it threatens your world as well. With our current strength, it'll be impossible for us to defeat the evil power individually. If I die first, do you think you can stop the evil power just by yourself? This is why working together is the only choice we have now. It's the only one that allows us to fight for our own people and survive this calamity. Otherwise, both our worlds will go extinct and we might cease to exist as well," said Jian Chen. He was filled with helplessness. His original plan had not been to work with the Spirit King but to devote himself to refining profound sword qi after dealing with the threat of the foreign world. Once he refined a strand of profound sword qi, he was confident he could make it through this calamity with the primordial god silk. However, the evil power had not given him enough time. When Jian Chen learned the method of refining profound sword qi from the sword spirits, he had also learned that both artifacts and techniques were split between the immortal tier and the god tier in the immortals world. All the sword techniques he had used in his fight against the Spirit King were of the immortal tier, because god tier sword techniques and secret techniques could only be grasped by immortal monarchs, and immortal monarchs would only be able to use a part of the technique's full power. Of course, there were a few special techniques that didn't follow the rules. Profound sword qi was an extremely special sword technique. It belonged to the god tier, a sword technique that was ranked at the apex of the god tier. It used the vital energies of life as a medium to refine 9 strands of profound sword qi, which were then nurtured in the soul. Practicing the technique did not require the strength of an immortal monarch. All it required was for someone to have reached major achievement of sword origin. Reaching that point was enough to refine the first strand of profound sword qi. Refining all 9 strands would require the highest realm of the way of the sword, sword god. However, since the profound sword qi was a god-tier sword technique, even just the first strand was unimaginably powerful. This was Jian Chen's trump card against the evil power and where his confidence came from. However, he no longer had the time to refine profound sword qi, so he could only negotiate with the Spirit King and work together. After a moment of deliberation, the Spirit King agreed to Jian Chen's suggestion in the end. The two of them called a ceasefire and decided to work together to deal with the evil power. They both could tell that the evil power did not just threaten the Tianyuan continent but the world of forsaken saints as well. This peace would only be temporary. A blood-red cloud rose up in the sky above the miniature world constructed by the rock. It dyed the hazy gray space a blood-red color. The surroundings dimmed, as if they had become a cavern of ice. The cloud gave off an evil presence. The blood-red cloud tossed, turned, and blanketed the surroundings. It sent out a chilling, terrifying pulse of energy, causing the world to tremble as large swathes of space collapsed. At the same time, a tremendous formation vaguely appeared. It was shockingly powerful and enveloped the entire world. The formation trembled with great instability due to the churning blood-red cloud. It seemed like it was about to shatter. The blood-red cloud slowly gathered in the center of the miniature world. It transformed constantly, assuming a human form at times, alternating between different genders and ages before switching to a bestial form. It continued to change, turning into plants, rocks, and everything else in the world. It did not have a form, so it could become anything. Finally, the blood-red cloud solidified, assuming the body of a human. It was completely blood-red, as if the body had been condensed from blood. Its face was blurry and unclear. It radiated a terrifyingly cold presence, representing great evil and the will of destruction. This will of destruction did not target any specific person or race. Instead, it targeted everything with life, including the entire world and universe. It was as if it existed for the purpose of destruction. It was the evil power hiding within the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. Dahahaha, the blood-red figure produced a strange laughter. The laughter possessed a terrifying power, which was able to penetrate anything. The moment it began to laugh, the surrounding space collapsed and descended into darkness. At the same time, strands of essence that seemed to originate from the world condensed around the blood-red figure before being absorbed by the figure. After losing the essence, the surroundings died, like a lively young man who had all his vitality wrenched out of him. Clearly, the blood-red figure possessed a special innate ability and could devour its surroundings to strengthen itself. Boom! Suddenly, the blood-red figure shot into the sky with lightning-like speed as a streak of red light. It viciously smashed into the formation. With a rumble, the formation immediately collapsed. It had existed for far too long even though it possessed quite the power. Chapter 1607, Evil Spirit. 2/3 of the origin energy gathered in the surroundings vanished the moment the formation shattered. It was absorbed the moment the blood-red figure struck the formation, strengthening the formation's defenses. However, even then, the formation was unable to endure a single attack from the blood-red figure. The formation was not the only thing that shattered. The space that had formed over countless years shattered as well. A storm of destruction swept through the gray space, causing it to descend into darkness. It collapsed so quickly that it was unimaginable. In just a few seconds, the entire place vanished, leaving behind vast, starry depths. The remaining origin energy moved like water through a broke dam, expanding in all directions. The blood-red figure floated in outer space. Its figure was blurry and hazy, as if it had been condensed from a mist of blood. It had no facial features but radiated an extremely cold and evil presence. As the presence spread out, the surrounding stars shook. The blood-red figure produced a strange laugh. It was not true laugh, but a mental pulse. It then looked around at the surrounding space before strands of essence gathered from the surroundings. They were absorbed by the figure. The essence seemed to be the life and vitality of this region, so once this region of space lost its life and vitality, it would wither away rapidly, like plants that had been killed. The essence was not the only thing absorbed, but the origin energy that spread in all directions as well. If an origin realm expert absorbed all the origin energy in the surroundings, their strength would definitely skyrocket. In fact, several origin realm experts could break through, but it had all been absorbed by the blood-red figure, yet it failed to make the blood-red figure's strength increase at all. The figure was just too powerful, so if it wanted to increase its strength, that origin energy was not enough. With a strange laugh, the blood-red figure disappeared with a flash. When it reappeared, it had already crossed a huge distance. It appeared above a planet as its body turned into a dense, red mist, which envelopes the planet. From afar, the planet seemed to become red, shining with a demonic, red light. 5 minutes later, the blood-red mist assumed a humanoid figure once again. The planet had died off. Not only had the vegetation on the planet withered away, but all the vitality from the planet itself was also gone. The planet would never be able to produce life ever again. The blood-red figure did not seem to devour the essence of the universe but the vitality of planets themselves. It was the bane of all planets with life, and wherever it passed by, it would enforce a dead silence. The blood-red figure charged off to another planet with life to continue devouring them. As it devoured all life, its strength increased at a gradual rate. Although it was extremely slow, it was still extremely terrifying. If it was allowed to continue, the planets of the universe wouldn't be the only existence that would die. The entire universe would face death too. If cultivators ever attempted to do what the evil presence was doing, they would be punished unless their strength had reached a level where they could go against the laws of the world. However, the blood-red figure did not suffer from this restriction for some special reasons. Soon, several planets had died. If the planets had more time, they might have been able to develop to the point where they had life similar to the Tianyuan continent, but now, they had lost the ability to create life ever again. They were now unable to give birth to life anymore, let alone develop anything like the Tianyuan continent. The blood-red figure seemed to sense something after absorbing the life of several planets. It suddenly turned its head to peer into the depths of space. There, it could sense the presence of life that was even denser than what he had absorbed from the previous planets. The presence of life was like delicious food to this figure, which behaved like a hungry beast, without any ability to hold back. As it continued to laugh strangely, it turned into a streak of red light and shot off, surpassing the speed of light. The space before the figure seemed to fold up as it flew, causing the red streak of light to blink forward every time it broke through a fold. It would cross an extremely vast distance in a single moment. Jian Chen and the Spirit King each occupied half of the shattered moon as they recovered as quickly as they could. Even though the two of them were very heavily injured, they were recovering at an utterly astonishing rate. Jian Chen had his chaotic body and abilities as a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master while the Spirit King had extremely precious medicine. At this moment, Jian Chen and the Spirit King snapped open their eyes at the same time. They firmly stared into the depths of space. Although they were unable to see anything, the evil power's presence was massive, so they could clearly sense it even from far away. "It's heading over here," Jian Chen sternly exclaimed. The milky white light in which he bathed became even denser as he spoke. He was using even more strands of Radiant Saint Force Origin energy to heal. The Spirit King was also grim. After a moment of hesitation, he took out another precious pill and consumed it so that he would be able to heal even faster. The two of them understood that they did not have much time left. They needed to return to their peak conditions in the shortest amount of time possible. In the forbidden grounds of the City Lord's estate in Flame City, Fairy Hayu also stared into the depths of outer space. She frowned slightly and began to ponder. She said, after some hesitation, "Is this presence the evil spirit mentioned in records? Legend has it that the evil spirit is formed from the filth and evilness in the world. Due to certain reasons, it only appears in lower worlds and is extremely rare, but whenever it does appear, it will cause a calamity for the lower world. It might even end up destroying countless numbers of them. Legend has it that countless years ago, an evil spirit wreaked havoc in lower worlds and devoured several tens of thousands of them. It grew to a point where it could threaten the Saints' world, which led to several Grand Primes working together to kill it, but 3 of them died to the hands of the evil spirit while the other Grand Primes became heavily injured. In the end, the evil spirit caught the attention of the 7 Grand Exalts of the Saints' world. The evil spirit was only slain when the Anata Grand Prime personally moved. This evil spirit's strength is nowhere near the one from legend, but it's not weak either. Jian Chen and the Spirit King possess the battle prowess akin to early godhood, but they're still not the evil spirit's enemy. This world's in danger. Chapter 1608, Impending Crisis. The evil spirit moved in the direction of the Tianyuan continent at full speed through the depths of space. The space in front of it seemed to fold up as it flew, causing the red streak of light to blink forward every time it broke through a fold. It would cross an extremely vast distance in a single moment. Jian Chen and the Spirit King healed as quickly as they could. Their eyes were fixated on the depths of space as they carefully sensed the evil spirit's location. They were grim. The evil spirit moved very quickly, but it was extremely far away from the Tianyuan continent. It would need some time if it wanted to arrive. 6 hours later, Jian Chen recovered from his wounds first and returned to peak condition. However, the Spirit King was not as quick as Jian Chen even after consuming 2 precious pills. He had only healed half his wounds. The Spirit King looked at Jian Chen again when Jian Chen had completely healed. There was some uncontainable shock on his face. He knew that Jian Chen healed very quickly, but he had never thought Jian Chen would heal so fast. He had used 6 short hours to recover from such heavy wounds. Shan Jian, you heal too slowly. We don't have much time left, so I'll help you out. Jian Chen stood up and spoke from very far away. Afterward, he took a step into the air and walked over, arriving before the Spirit King in just a few steps. The origin energy of Class 9 Radiant Saint Force condensed in his hand before he slowly pressed it against the Spirit King's shoulder. The Spirit King was cautious, but he did not turn down Jian Chen's good intentions. However, his caution did not decrease at all. Even when he was covered with the dense, gentle, milky white light, he did not relax in the slightest. The Spirit King could clearly feel that his wounds were actually healing much faster than with just the pills alone. This secretly shocked him. Only now did he really sense just how powerful Radiant Saint Force origin energy was. Although the power did not possess many offensive capabilities, its rate of healing was equivalent to consuming a divine pill. The Spirit King made a full recovery very quickly with Jian Chen's assistance. It was also at this time that Jian Chen took out the God-slaying formation scroll he had obtained in the foreign world from his space ring. He said, since this is called the God-slaying formation, it must be something designed to kill gods. Shen Jian, you know this God-slaying formation better than me. If you get all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints to work with all the Origin Realm experts from my world, how much power can it display? The Spirit King looked at the scroll and said, since the God-slaying formation is with you, Ouyang Yangwen must have used it against you. You should also understand the power of the formation. Although the formation can easily kill God Kings if all of its power is displayed, the strength it requires to kill a God King incredible. Now that Ouyang Yangwen is dead, my world has lost a reciprocity expert. Even if all the elders and protectors from my world work with your Origin Realm experts, it'll probably be very difficult to reach the level of godhood. The gap between the Origin Realm and godhood is extremely large and cannot be overcome so easily. We've only been able to achieve our stasis by comprehending the way of the sword. Looks like only the 2 of us can take part in this battle. No one else will be able to help, Jian Chen said gruffly. The upcoming battle was one that belonged to the realm of godhood. Origin Realm experts would not have the power to take part. Triggering the power of the God-slaying formation depended on cultivation and had nothing to do with battle prowess. Jian Chen and the Spirit King were both at reciprocity in terms of cultivation, so if they activated the God-slaying formation, the power demonstrated would roughly be the same as their regular battle prowess. After a moment of silence, Jian Chen continued, this is a crisis of the world. If we can make it through, our worlds will continue to thrive, but if we can't, then both our worlds will be completely annihilated. We've basically reached the end of the line now. We have to use everything we have in these desperate times. The God-slaying formation may not be able to kill gods, but it might be of great use at a certain, crucial time. The Spirit King could obviously understand what Jian Chen was saying. He wanted to get all the Origin Realm experts of the 2 worlds and maybe even some Saint Emperors to use the God-slaying formation. As this was related to the survival of the 2 worlds, the Spirit King obviously did not mind. He stood up and said, you're right. I'll go to the world of Forsaken Saints to get all the elders and protectors. You can handle your Origin Realm experts. With that, the Spirit King left, directly heading back to the world of Forsaken Saints. Time was tight right now. They did not have much time left now, so they needed to get everything prepared as soon as possible. Jianchen also left, but he did not return to the Tian Yuan continent. Instead, he went to the world of Forsaken Saints with the Spirit King because Shangguan Mu'er was still there. When Jianchen and the Spirit King passed through, Shangguan Mu'er was still fighting against the elders and protectors. They fought an extremely intense battle, causing the world mountains to constantly tremble. The entire world had darkened from the fighting. The simultaneous return of Jianchen and the Spirit King stopped the battle very soon. Without saying much, Jianchen immediately left the world of Forsaken Saints with Shangguan Mu'er. Jianchen, how did your battle with the Spirit King go? As they traveled through the tunnel, Shangguan Mu'er looked at Jianchen in concern. Jianchen gently held Shangguan Mu'er's hand in the tunnel. He grimly said, "We ended in a draw, but it's no longer about the battle against the foreign world anymore. The evil power in the Yinyang Saint Rock has broken free early and is currently heading toward the Tian Yuan continent. We're currently facing an unprecedented crisis. I've struck an agreement with the Spirit King already. We will work together against the evil power." Shangguan Mu'er's face suddenly changed. She was familiar with the evil power sealed in the Yinyang Saint Rock. No matter how much her strength had increased, she always felt chills whenever she was near it. This was still the case even though she was at the peak of mid-reciprocity right now. Chapter 1609, Working together. Jianchen and Shangguan Mu'er returned to the Tian Yuan continent. A deafening cheer came from the experts of the four races the moment they appeared. They did not know about the situation of the foreign world, nor did they know whether Jianchen emerged victorious or not. However, they had seen just how intense their human sovereign had fought against the Spirit King. The shattered moon was the best evidence. No one knew who ended up victorious in the fight between Jianchen and the Spirit King, including the Origin Realm experts, but they all knew that Jianchen was now powerful enough to stand up to the Spirit King. Their Tian Yuan continent had truly gained the power to keep the world of Forsaken Saints at bay. Jianchen extended his hands and made the crowd quiet down. He did not say much and only commanded all the Origin Realm experts of the four races to gather in the Supreme Divine Hall. Jianchen told all the Origin Realm experts about the evil power, without hiding anything at all, in the Supreme Divine Hall, causing the silence of death to sink in. All their joy and excitement had vanished in a single moment. We've also sensed the presence from deep outer space. I never thought it would be a crisis of the world, Feng Xiaotian said sternly. The power is very great. Even with my battle prowess at godhood, I am not confident I can defeat it, so I've struck an alliance with the Spirit King to face it with the power of two worlds, Jianchen said grimly as he slowly glanced at everyone. The Divine Hall immediately fell silent. Everyone looked at each other. Many of them found this to mirror a drama. They had started out as mortal enemies with the world of Forsaken Saints, yet in the blink of an eye, they had to work together. The changes were so great that they would find it hard to adapt for some time. However, most of them remained silent because of the impending crisis. The existence of the crisis would force the two worlds to temporarily put their differences aside and work together. They had to stand together, making it quite obvious just how terrifying the crisis was. Jianchen, the fur of the winged tiger god, contains a great secret. You can use it to comprehend Mo Tianyan's way of slaughter. It's just been a pity that we've tried comprehending it for years, yet no one's gained anything. Your talent is better than ours, so if you comprehend the way of slaughter, you should have a better chance against the evil power, said Houston. He also mentioned the shocking secret that maybe Mo Tianyun was the winged tiger god. Big brother, it's with me. I'll give it you. Xiaoling passed the white fur to Jian Chen. Jian Chen accepted the white beast fur. As his soul entered it, his consciousness was immediately taken to the world within, experiencing the same thing that Houston and the others had gone through. Jian Chen's consciousness slowly returned to him a while later. Even though what he saw inside surprised him slightly, he remained extremely calm. What surprised him was the way of slaughter that Mo Tianyun had left in the beast fur and not the possibility that Mo Tianyun was the winged tiger god. Jian Chen had already stumbled across the possibility long ago. He had searched through a large number of records in the Changyang Protector clan to understand Mo Tianyun. In the end, he slowly deduced that Mo Tianyun might have been the winged tiger god, except he could never prove it. No wonder Xiaoling suddenly said that I had Mo Tianyun's presence when I first visited Mercenary City. I had not met Mo Tianyun back then, and the only thing that was somewhat special was that white beast fur. The white beast fur bears Mo Tianyun's presence, which is why Xiaoling had mistaken me and thought I possessed Mo Tianyun's presence, thought Jian Chen. Now, he really felt rather glad that he had taken the beast fur that had been passed down through the Bai family into Mercenary City back then. The beast fur was the reason he ended up meeting Xiaoling. I went to Mercenary City again after adopting the white tiger, and Xiaoling said that Mo Tianyun's presence on me had become heavier. Looks like that was due to the white tiger. The white tiger's presence might be extremely similar to Mo Tianyun, or maybe exactly the same. After that, the white tiger slowly grew up and learned how to keep its presence concealed, so Xiaoling was unable to sense anything when the white tiger was present before Xiaoling. Even if she did sense it, she wouldn't have thought too much about it with her childlike mentality. Through the secret hidden within the beast fur, Jian Chen was even more certain that Mo Tianyun was the winged tiger god. However, he also knew that no matter how certain he was, the truth could not be confirmed until there was evidence. Jian Chen, is it difficult for you to comprehend Mo Tianyun's way of slaughter? Houston stared at Jian Chen. They, the Origin Realm experts, would not be useful during this crisis. They all had to rely on Jian Chen, so they all wished that Jian Chen could become even more powerful at such a crucial time. Jian Chen carefully folded up the beast fur and replied in a deep voice, "If you give me some time, I can comprehend the way of slaughter, but the evil power will descend on the Tianyuan continent very soon. There's not nearly enough time." Jian Chen sighed inside. He felt extremely helpless. His greatest trump card would be the profound sword qi. He was confident that once he refined the first strand, his battle prowess would increase even more than if he comprehended the way of slaughter. Unfortunately, he just did not have the time. He did not even have the time to use a comprehension tea leaf. At this moment, violent energy suddenly spewed out from the tunnel connecting the two worlds. The tunnel suddenly began to tremble at that moment as well. Figures flickered in the depths of the tunnel as they slowly headed toward the Tianyuan continent. Oh, now, the people from the world of Forsaken Saints are invading again. What? Those bastards are coming again? Humph, do they really think that our Tianyuan continent is a public park and that they can come and go as they please? What are you afraid of? Don't forget that we now have Sovereign Jian Chen. Sovereign Jian Chen is no weaker than the Spirit King, so we don't need to fear the foreign world anymore. The changes to the tunnel were discovered as soon as they happened. The experts of the four races gathered on the Tianyuan continent did not pale in fear as if they were facing an apocalypse. Instead, they were all brimming with high spirits. They showed no fear at all as they all roared with battle intent. They rapidly got into formation, ready to receive the unwelcome guests. Very soon, all the people exited the tunnel and appeared in the Tianyuan continent. There were not many of them, only around 40, but every single one of them gave off a terrifying presence. The surroundings shook even though they were just standing. The fighters in the surroundings all became stunned at this sight. Their faces all changed. All the people who had emerged were Origin Realm experts. Quick, report to Sovereign Jian Chen. someone immediately exclaimed. However, before he had finished speaking, Jian Chen and the Origin Realm experts all emerged from the Supreme Divine Hall. Their appearance immediately made the people of the four races let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 16:10 The Power of Two Worlds. Jian Chen's appearance filled the sainthood experts with confidence after the several dozen Origin Realm experts from the foreign world appeared. The people who had originally surrounded the foreign Origin Realm experts all retreated behind Jian Chen as quickly as they could. They all understood that they would be of no help at all with their insignificant strength against Origin Realm experts. Just the shock waves of battle between Origin Realm experts could injure them. At a time like this, they could only rely on the Origin Realm experts on their side. Many experts among the four races were eager for their human sovereign to engage in another great battle in outer space with the Spirit King because a battle at godhood was just too fascinating for them, mere sainthood experts. It would really benefit their future cultivation if they could witness such a great battle. Unexpectedly, neither Jian Chen, the Spirit King, nor the Origin Realm experts showed any hostility. From how it looked, none of them seemed to be planning to fight, which immediately filled everyone with doubt. At this moment, the Spirit King took a step forward from the side of the world of forsaken saints. He appeared before Jian Chen like he had teleported and directly extended his hand. He said, "Give me the God-slaying formation. The protectors and elders from my world have already comprehended it for some time now, so their understanding is far greater than the Origin Realm experts of your world. I will let the protectors and elders take the lead in casting down the formation this time. Your Origin Realm experts only need to contribute Origin energy for support." Jian Chen did not hesitate and passed the God-slaying formation to the Spirit King. The formation was extremely precious, but personal gains would amount to nothing before a crisis of the world. If they could not make it through the crisis, the world would be reduced to nothing. The Tianyuan continent and the world of forsaken saints had stopped fighting now and called a ceasefire. All of the Origin Realm experts had to put aside their personal grievances and work together to comprehend the God-slaying formation. All of them understood the severity of the matter. There was an immediate uproar when the sainthood experts learned about the ceasefire between the two worlds. Some people agreed with the decision while other people opposed it. Even though they did not directly express their thoughts, they displayed their resentment in their hearts through their gazes. Their family and friends had died to the hands of the foreign experts, so they obviously resented working together. However, the people unhappy with the matter gradually accepted the reality of things when Jian Chen announced the crisis of the world and explained how severe it was. The Origin Realm experts of the two worlds appeared polite and peaceful on the surface as they comprehended the God-slaying formation together, but they did not get along completely. Many of them still held grudges for one another. The elders and protectors on Ouyang Yangwen's side, in particular, all felt some resentment for this world, especially since they had been close to the elder Jian Chen had killed on the Tianyuan continent in the past. They dared not to find Jian Chen to resolve their anger, so they shifted it onto the other Origin Realm experts from the Tianyuan continent. Even though they could not do anything due to the Spirit King's strict orders, they would make things difficult or make fun of the people from the Tianyuan continent whenever they had the chance as they comprehended the formation. "We're working with you because of the crisis, not because we fear you. If you want to keep acting like that, don't blame me for ignoring the temporary truce and being merciless." Shangguan Mu'er walked over from afar. Her voice was very cold and bore icy killing intent. She was warning all the Origin Realm experts from the foreign world. She did not take part in the comprehension of the God-slaying formation since she was skilled with the zither, making her the bane of souls. She might be of more use by assisting on the side. Shangguan Mu'er had fought against several dozen Origin Realm experts all by herself, so the battle had cemented her prestige. All the elders and protectors from the other world shut up and fear flooded their eyes. The people who were making trouble all revealed different expressions and immediately stopped talking, behaving like mutes. The Origin Realm experts were immediately surprised by the sight of this. Their opinions of Shangguan Mu'er all changed. At the same time, Saint Emperors constantly flew out from the tunnel connecting the two worlds. They all arrived on the Tian Yuan continent with concealed presences, rapidly falling into place to create an extraordinarily powerful formations. Soon afterward, the sainthood experts from the Tian Yuan continent also moved under Jian Chen's orders. They all stood in great formations in the sky and had brought out the 7 ancestral artifacts from the protector clans as well. They were about to face an impending crisis, so both the Tian Yuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints had brought out everything they had. Although the formations from the sainthood experts would not be of much use, neither world had a choice now. They could not let any power slide through their fingers, no matter how weak it was. The Supreme Divine Hall from Mercenary City hovered high in the sky, also ready for battle at any moment. However, the Supreme Divine Hall was primarily defensive and the crisis required active offense, not defense, to destroy its source. As a result, the Divine Hall was unable to be of much use in the upcoming battle. Pure defense was unable to solve the problem, and maintaining the Divine Hall also required an extremely tremendous amount of energy. They would much rather use that power to deal with the crisis. In just half a day, the sainthood experts of the two worlds completed all preparations. They created countless formations in the sky, and even the several dozen Origin Realm experts had gained a limited understanding of the God-slaying formation, forming a solid line of defenses. Jian Chen and the Spirit King sat in the air as well. They were at the front lines, currently conditioning themselves to their peak state and preparing for battle. Jian Chen held the golden silk mail woven from primordial god silk. He seemed to be in thought as he looked at it. He knew the primordial god silk existed for the crisis, but it had not reacted at all now that the source of the crisis had appeared. Chapter 1611, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 1. The primordial god silk was extremely mysterious. When Jian Chen had first obtained it, it could only block attacks from saint rulers. It was insignificant against attacks from saint kings. Although a saint king's attack would not be able to rupture the primordial god silk, the silk was unable to absorb such power, so Jian Chen was still hit with the force of the attack. The force would have been enough to jolt him to pieces when he was still weak. The primordial god silk worked exactly the same as before. It could only stop attacks from saint rulers, but it was so tough that his battle prowess at godhood could not damage it at all. The large amounts of Xianhuang qi it had absorbed in the Xianhuang microcosm seemed to have completely settled into the silk as well. Primordial god silk, O primordial god silk! The crisis of the world has already appeared, so why do you still not show your might? You were born to deal with the crisis, Jian Chen mumbled as he stared at the primordial god silk in his hands. He began to secretly worry as he sensed the evil power rapidly approach them. Jian Chen had studied the primordial god silk for a very long time back in the space created by the Yinyang Saint Rock. Unfortunately, he had found nothing. He had asked the sword spirits as well, but even the sword spirits had no idea how to get the primordial god silk to display its might. Although they had seen a few treasures forged from primordial god silk in the immortals world, the people in possession of them were not the first owners. Instead, they had obtained them through various methods, including killing and stealing. They obviously did not know how the primordial god silk would deal with the crisis. A terrifying pressure shook outer space, causing the stars to darken. The evil power approached the Tian Yuan continent at an unbelievable speed. It had used a single day to reach the Tian Yuan continent from the depths of space. Both Jian Chen and the Spirit King could now clearly see a smear of demonic, red light in the distant space. The red light expanded at an unbelievable rate as the evil power approached the planet. In just a few seconds, it seemed to have become a scorching sun, shining with a blinding red light that dyed the entire sky red. Dahaha! Sustenance! Sustenance! My sustenance, all of my sustenance! I will become even more powerful by devouring you. An extremely powerful idea expanded from the red light, sweeping across all of space. Not only did Jian Chen and the Spirit King sense it, but all the people on the Tian Yuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Wasteland continent, and the Sea Realm sensed the idea as well, causing countless people's expressions to change. They paled in a single moment and hundreds of millions of people vomited blood. Their eyes became completely bloodshot and a few weaker people even bled from all their orifices. They looked terrifying. All the mortals among the four races who did not cultivate tilted their heads and fell unconscious. There were even many people whose heads exploded. In a single moment, the four races entered a state of mass panic. Countless mortals fainted and countless fighters became injured as well. The sainthood experts from the two worlds who stood in formation in the sky all became extremely grim. They were not injured, but they felt like their heads were being split open, as if a nail was being driven into their soul, making it ache. The several dozen Origin Realm experts from the two worlds became extremely ugly. What happened on the Tian Yuan continent could not escape their senses. The evil power had only let out a single idea, but it had already caused so much destruction. This shocked all of them. The evil power was far greater than they could have imagined. Can Jian Chen and the Spirit King destroy this evil power? At this moment, a similar thought appeared in the heads of all the Origin Realm experts. They had not started fighting yet, but they had already witnessed how terrifying the evil power was. They began to doubt whether or not Jian Chen and the Spirit King could deal with this crisis, because this crisis was so terrifying that it seemed much greater than both Jian Chen and the Spirit King. However, they did not shrink back at all no matter how much despair they felt since there was no way out. The only hope for them was to face it head-on and squeeze out a chance for survival. Jian Chen and the Spirit King both stood up. They stared sternly ahead before moving at the same time. Their bodies became swords as they radiated a surging sword intent, charging toward the evil power at the speed of lightning. As they charged toward the evil power, Fairy Hao Yu was feeling conflicted inside the Bright Moon Divine Hall. She murmured to herself, "There's less than a 10% chance that this world will survive the crisis. With Jian Chen's and the Spirit King's strength, they'll only be able to keep the evil spirit busy for some time, which won't be very long. Once the two of them fall, the evil spirit will move against all forms of life on this planet. Even I won't be able to survive in my current form. Do I have to use the forbidden technique to leave here in the end?" Fairy Hao Yu hesitated. She would be protected from the evil spirit if she used her forbidden technique and could even return to the saints' world, but the price be too much. The price was so drastic that she was willing to give up her body and live as a soul for over 10,000 years just to avoid using it. "I'm too weak right now. I don't have a body, nor do I have moonlight force. My soul will disintegrate even if it's just fleeing from here if I use the forbidden technique," Fairy Hao Yu sighed. Her face was filled with helplessness. She did not consider her disciple, Yu Yu, at all. She had only accepted Yu Yu because Jian Chen's talent had caught her eye. She wanted to form a bond with Jian Chen through Yu Yu so that she could pay a small price or even nothing to leave this place when Jian Chen ventured to the saints' world in the future. She had never thought that this world would face a crisis at this very moment, destroying her plans. When the evil spirit was coming to attack, it had disturbed the laws of the world as well, making it impossible for the passage to the saints' world to be opened, so she could not return to the saints' world by herself even if she paid a price for the forbidden technique. Jian Chen wielded the Ziying sword while shrouded by a layer of dense violet light. He charged into the red light as a violet comet. Beside him, the Spirit King wielded the Cloud Stream sword. He seemed to have become a huge sword as he charged into the red light with Jian Chen. The two of them moved with full power to fend off the evil power around them. The two of them charged into the blinding red light while a blurry figure hovered in the center of the light. It radiated the icy cold presence of evil. With a strange laughter, the blurry figure that seemed to be condensed from mist slowly raised its hands toward Jian Chen and the Spirit King. At that moment, an endless amount of blood-red mist spewed out, enveloping Jian Chen and the Spirit King. Chapter 16:12, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 2. The blood-red mist was extremely evil, filled with a presence that could cause people to shiver without being physically cold. Within the blood-red mist, a bone-chilling coldness seemed to attack Jian Chen and the Spirit King. It penetrated their defensive glow and approached their skin before entering their bodies. Blood stopped flowing, and all signs of life were frozen wherever the coldness passed. Even their limbs became stiff. At that moment, both of them felt stiff all over. Their movements became sluggish. Their battle prowess at godhood was puny before the cold presence. However, their expressions changed once again. They could feel the cold presence devour the signs of life in their bodies as well as their vital energies. They experienced a feeling of weakness as their vitality and vital energies were devoured, which made their hearts sink. They knew that the evil power was extremely powerful, so powerful that it would be difficult for them to face it together. However, they had never expected it to be so terrifying. They had already fallen into such a horrible position as soon as they came into contact with it. Suddenly, Jian Chen roared and eighth-layer chaotic force surged out of his chaotic Niden. He used his chaotic force to repel the icy presence. At the same time, the twin swords exploded with light, shining like two suns. The Qing Suo sword expanded as it flew, growing to 3,000 meters in length in a single moment. Under the control of Jian Chen's soul, it shot off as a resplendent streak of light, heading into the mist with a seemingly unstoppable force. The attack from the Qing Suo sword was enough to destroy worlds, but the thin-looking layer of mist only shook slightly before restabilizing. Not only had the attack failed to penetrate the mist around Jian Chen, but it had even failed to deal much damage at all. At this moment, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He lowered his head to glance at the primordial god silk, which he had been holding in his left hand for the entire time. It still had not shown any reactions. Determination flooded his eyes. Gripping the Ziying sword, his presence erupted as he cried out, Daluo sword. With that, a golden sword chi rapidly condensed. The sword chi possessed extremely terrifying power, causing the surrounding space to collapse from the attack's frightening pressure as soon as it had condensed. The sword chi then shot out with a golden flash. It moved extremely quickly, seeming to break free from the restrictions of space. It appeared before the red layer of mist in a single moment and heavily slammed into it. Boom! The golden sword chi immediately disappeared after the collision. It turned into a terrifying force that tried to rip through the red mist. However, the mist possessed unimaginable power. It endured the attack, and despite churning violently, it showed no signs of dispersing. Jian Chen coldly stared at the churning mist. Extending two fingers like a sword, he used the Daluo sword once again. Immediately, a second strand of golden sword chi condensed before his chest. It hurtled toward the red mist like a streak of lightning as well. Both attacks were as powerful as attacks from a godhood expert. The thin layer of mist finally gave way after enduring two Daluo swords from Jian Chen. His attacks had ripped open a hole that was 3 meters wide. Jian Chen immediately charged through it. At the same time, there was a boom nearby. The Spirit King had broken free from the cage-like red mist as well, charging out at the same time as Jian Chen. You can actually break free? It's me who has underestimated you, but it doesn't matter. The outcome will all be the same. Sustenance will remain sustenance, bohahaha. An idea swept out with some surprise. The blood-red figure hovered nearby as it let out a demonic red light, which illuminated the surroundings and turned them blood-red. All the essence in the surroundings rapidly gathered. The figure was devouring the essence of the universe right now. The surrounding planets had their essence siphoned away as strands of energy. The planets withered at a visible rate. The stars themselves did not wither, but all forms of life on them were. In the end, the planets gradually became gray and lifeless. Jian Chen and the Spirit King shivered when they saw the evil spirit use its ability to devour the lives of planets. At that moment, both of them became determined. They would prevent the evil spirit from approaching the Tianyuan continent. Otherwise, the Tianyuan continent would die and the world of Forsaken Saints would not be able to avoid the same fate. Tai sword technique. Jian Chen called out. His body and soul fused with his sword, and he seemed to have become a sword himself. As he radiated with a surging presence, he made the surroundings collapse and the stars tremor. He shot toward the evil spirit as a resplendent streak of light, shining as bright as the sun. Formbreaker. At the same time, the Spirit King's sword erupted with extremely dense origin energy. He used a sword technique that specialized in destroying anything with a form. He charged at the evil spirit with Jian Chen. The evil spirit only raised its hand when it noticed their attacks. The moment it raised its hand, the mist suddenly converged into a huge hand that was completely blood-red. Although the huge hand was condensed from the red mist and should not have been physical, the hand had consolidated into something tangible. The evil spirit sent the hand toward Jian Chen and the Spirit King. Boom! Boom! Colliding with the blood-red hand, Jian Chen and the Spirit King immediately produced heavy thuds. Both Jian Chen and the Spirit King felt like they had struck bedrock with their attacks, resulting in a powerful jolt. Not only had their attacks failed to damage the hand, but the hand had also struck them viciously, causing them to vomit blood and fly away in horrible shape. The moment they came into contact with the hand, a sliver of an evil force penetrated their bodies and began devouring their vital energies. At the same time, the evil energy came into contact with the primordial god silk in Jian Chen's left hand. When it invaded Jian Chen's body, it invaded the silk as well. However, the moment the evil force invaded the primordial god silk, the silk flickered with a golden luster. The flicker seemed to indicate the awakening of a vicious beast. Gradually, the primordial god silk began to shine with more and more golden light. Instantly, the primordial god silk became wrapped up in a soft glow. Its spiritual power had finally been awakened. Chapter 1613, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit, 3, As Jian Chen was blown back, his body crackled all over. The sounds came from his bones, and with a few crisp cracks, some of his bones snapped. The evil presence remained within his body, devouring his vital energies and life force, causing his own presence to rapidly weaken. The evil presence was extremely powerful, where even his chaotic body at the 8th layer struggled to stop its rampage. The Spirit King suffered similar wounds. His body was covered in blood and many of his bones were broken. The life and vital energies in his body were rapidly being devoured by the evil presence, causing his own presence to weaken as well. What cultivation realm has the evil power reached? It's so powerful. How are we supposed to defeat it? The Spirit King was astounded. He had gained an even clearer understanding of the evil spirit's strength from the clash just then. It was an undefeatable existence. It had already surpassed deity, or it would not have heavily injured both him and Jian Chen so easily. Jian Chen was also filled with despair. He had never underestimated the evil spirit, but only not that he had truly fought against it did he understand just how powerful it was. The evil spirit was so terrifying that even if he refined his profound sword qi, he still might not have been its opponent. At this moment, Jian Chen saw a ball of dazzling golden light, which immediately made his eyes narrow. He glanced at the primordial god silk in his left hand, and only now did he discover, to his joy, that the power hidden within the primordial god silk had begun to awaken. Flames of hope immediately reignited in his downcast heart due to the awakening of the primordial god silk. At the same time, strands of powerful silk radiated out and circulated through Jian Chen's body. Wherever they passed by, the evil presence would immediately disperse. The silk's power was not particularly great and it did not possess any powerful defensive properties, but it just happened to be the bane of the evil presence. The primordial god silk was created exactly for this crisis, so it was fated to fend off this crisis. As the evil presence was purged, Jian Chen immediately felt his body lighten. His weakening presence gradually strengthened. However, the vital energies and life force that had been absorbed earlier completely vanished. None of them were left behind, so Jian Chen still felt a sense of weakness, as if his power had been drained. I understand now. The primordial god silk requires the stimulation of the evil power to awaken what is hiding inside. Jian Chen's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the origin energy from Class 9 Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. He then quickly arrived before the Spirit King and pressed the primordial god silk against his body, having the silk purge the evil presence from the Spirit King as well. What is this treasure? It's so effective. The Spirit King immediately became surprised when he sensed the evil presence within him vanish. He stared at the glowing silk with great interest. This is a sacred object for repelling the crisis. Whether we can survive will all depend on it. Shunjian, you stand guard here. I'll go and use this to deal with it. Jian Chen gave a simple explanation. He then tightly gripped the primordial god silk with his left hand and used the linear lightning release with his right hand. He shot toward the evil spirit as a bolt of lightning at an unbelievable speed. The golden light from the primordial god silk became brighter and more resplendent as Jian Chen rapidly approached the evil spirit. There was a slight, desolate ray of yellow light among the golden glow as well. It was the Xianhuang Qi the primordial god silk had absorbed from the Xianhuang microcosm. What a detestable presence. I hate this presence. Food, go die. An idea pulsed from the evil spirit. It carried a feeling of irritation. The presence from the primordial god silk made the evil spirit feel uneasy. It felt greatly threatened and subconsciously wanted to avoid the primordial god silk. However, the evil spirit was rather clever as well. In its eyes, both Jian Chen and the Spirit King were only food. It would not be frightened away by food. Its body immediately dispersed and turned into a sea of blood that blotted out the sun. It wrapped around Jian Chen as a huge net. This time, the evil spirit used all its power. Not only did it want to devour Jian Chen, but it also wanted to devour the primordial god silk, which it felt threatened by. Jian Chen entered a world of blood. He held the primordial god silk as electricity crackled around him. He shot through the bloody world as a lightning bolt, crossing several hundred kilometers in a single moment. He moved unbelievable fast. Wherever he moved, the surrounding liquid disappeared, evaporating away and leaving a long tunnel behind him. Of course, the disappearance of the liquid had nothing to do with him. It was all because of the primordial god silk, which had absorbed all of the liquid. It was just that the blood-like liquid seemed endless. Jian Chen shot through the liquid at the speed of lightning, so fast that he could traverse several hundred kilometers in a single moment, but he still did not break free from the liquid even after he finished casting the linear lightning release. What is this? It's devouring my power. A mental pulse from the evil spirit rang in Jian Chen's head at this moment. It was furious. I am the Lord of Devouring. There isn't anything in the universe I can't devour. Everything is my sustenance, yet you devour my power. Let's see who devours who in the end, the evil spirit roared. The sea of blood that it had formed began to churn because of its roar. It had turned into a huge whirlpool that rapidly swirled. Jian Chen just happened to be at its center. Jian Chen felt the life and vital energies in his body drain away at an unbelievably rapid rate as soon as the whirlpool formed. In an instant, he had lost as much as a tenth of his life force and vital energies. The feeling of weakness became even greater as strands of gray hair appeared in his black hair. Jian Chen was shocked. The evil power devoured just too quickly. With his current strength, he was helpless against the devouring force. He was a sitting duck, waiting to be butchered. He could last half a minute at most before he would pass away from losing all his life force. The primordial god silk seemed to be stimulated even more. The power hidden inside began to fully awaken. It radiated a dazzling golden light, which was the bane of the evil spirit. The evil spirit was extremely powerful, but it could do nothing about the light. On the other hand, Jian Chen became enveloped by the golden light and he felt like he had entered a whole different world. He was completely cut off from outside. The devouring force from the evil spirit could not get to him. The primordial god silk that had been woven into armor began to unweave itself, turning into long strands of golden silk that stabbed into the depths of the sea of blood. They let out blinding, resplendent lights as all the power sleeping inside was awakened. The sea of blood immediately began to churn. The evil spirit furiously roared as it spoke through mental pulses. This damned presence is suppressing me. God damn it. If I hadn't wasted so much power on that bastard, how would this damned presence keep me suppressed, let alone injure me? The evil spirit angrily bellowed. The sea of blood rapidly began to shrink and no longer seemed to be under the evil spirit's control. Strands of golden light would flash in the sea of blood as it violently churned. Chapter 16:14, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 4. The vast sea of blood churned and rapidly shrank. A dazzling light could be seen from time to time. Vaguely, golden strands seemed to weave through the sea of blood like worms. The sea of blood did not seem to be shrinking per its own accord, so there was a violent struggle in the process. However, no matter how it struggled and resisted, it was all useless. At the same time, the sea of blood stopped absorbing the essence of the universe, as if the awakening of the primordial god silk's power had suppressed even that. In the end, the sea of blood reformed into the figure that Jian Chen and the Spirit King had seen at first. It was 9 meters tall and completely blood-red. It possessed the features of a human, except its face was a blur, making it seem faceless. A long, golden strand transformed from the primordial god silk wrapped around the blood-red figure with a dazzling glow. Under the radiance of the silk, the figure sizzled as blood-red mist disappeared at a visible rate. The primordial god silk was very effective against the evil spirit. It could literally be described as a born killer of the evil spirit. As a result, the evil spirit was immediately suppressed, despite being so powerful that it defeated even Jian Chen and the Spirit King in a single move. A dense layer of radiant saint force surrounded Jian Chen as he hovered afar. As he healed, he also stared at the primordial god silk with hope. He could immediately see the light of victory after witnessing just how weak the evil spirit was before the primordial god silk. The Spirit King flew over from afar and consumed a pill, taking advantage of every moment to heal. He sternly stared at the golden threads around the evil spirit and said with a gruff voice, "I never thought you would have such a powerful treasure. Can this treasure destroy it? This is a sacred object born for the crisis of the world. It doesn't matter if it can destroy this evil power, but it's the only thing we can count on right now," Jian Chen replied solemnly. Originally, they had the god-slaying formation, but after witnessing the strength of the evil spirit, he understood that it would be completely useless unless he could erupt with all the power the god-slaying formation could offer. However, the cultivation level requirement for the formation was extremely high if they wanted to display such power. Just the several dozen Origin Realm experts from the 2 worlds were far from enough. On the other hand, the 3 supreme treasures from the world of Forsaken Saints were called supreme treasures because they could be used to deal with an Origin Realm expert, which were the apex in that world. Every single one of them reigned supreme, so the supreme treasures truly were worthy of their name since they could deal with such experts. However, using them against the evil spirit would be completely futile. At this moment, a chillingly and terrifying power suddenly appeared. It caused all the stars to tremor and darken. The evil spirit trapped within the primordial god silk had begun its counterattack. Under the restraint of the primordial god silk, it rapidly began to expand, becoming 3,000 meters tall in a single moment. As the evil spirit swelled, the primordial god silk became taut. Its golden light flickered, keeping the evil spirit firmly trapped like a great net. As soon as its golden light struck the evil power, it actually vaporized the evil power. At the same time, the evil spirit's ability to devour everything had completely vanished under the primordial god silk's restraint. Shenzhen, let's attack it as hard as we can and weaken its power, just in case it breaks free from the primordial god silk, Jianchen said seriously. He immediately moved with the Spirit King, dealing attacks with his full power at the trapped evil spirit. The evil spirit had become a sitting duck now that the primordial god silk restrained it. It was unable to fight back at all against Jianchen and the Spirit King's attacks. Well, that splits the heavens, the sword shakes and stars shatter. The Spirit King bellowed out. He directly stabbed the Spirit King through the gaps between the primordial god silk with his metal sword. As the sword tremored, it immediately produced rings of visible ripples. The ripples possessed extremely terrifying power. They could shatter stars, so the evil spirit's mist-like body immediately churned under the expansion of the ripples. Wherever the ripples passed by, the surrounding mist would dull in color. Tai sword technique. At the same time, Jianchen moved as well. Without any hesitation, he stabbed the evil spirit as hard as he could. Jianchen and the Spirit King would never have been able to injure the evil spirit if the primordial god silk did not restrain and suppress it. However, now that primordial god silk suppressed it, it was unable to use any strength at all, so it suffered from their attacks. However, their actions had completely infuriated the evil spirit. An extremely violent power immediately expanded, sweeping through the stars and making space ripple. The evil spirit swelled even larger as it secretly charged up a terrifying power. It planned to smash through the primordial god silk in a single strike. The primordial god silk was completely taut as it shone with a dazzling golden light. Even though it did all within its power to keep the evil spirit restrained, it gradually lost the upper hand as the evil spirit's power rapidly strengthened. The primordial god silk is still ownerless. Once the power inside fully awakens, you can refine it. Master, this is the best moment. Quickly refine the primordial god silk. Then control its power to deal with the crisis. The crisis this time is unimaginably powerful due to the influence of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. The sword spirit's voices suddenly rang in Jianchen's head. A gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. Without any hesitation, he asked the sword spirits for the method of refinement. Then he arrived before the evil spirit with a single step. He bit the tip of his tongue and sprayed out a mouthful of essence blood onto the primordial god silk. Afterwards, he closed his eyes and sent his consciousness into the primordial god silk to refine it. Chapter 1615, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 5. A primordial god silkworm had used all its vital energies that had descended in the face of a crisis that threatened an entire world to weave the primordial god silk. As a result, the primordial god silk was one of the supreme treasures in the world. It was extremely rare and precious. Once the powers inside fully awakened, it would not be easy for Jianchen to refine it with his current strength. He would need quite a long time against its resistance. However, as the primordial god silk was fulfilling its reason of existence, using its power against the evil spirit, it could not resist. As a result, Jianchen's refinement of the primordial god silk was extraordinarily successfully, advancing at an exceedingly rapid rate. A while later, Jianchen completely refined the primordial god silk through the method he had learnt from the sword spirits. Only then did he understand the terrifying and vast level of power that remained hidden within the primordial god silk. The power was as tremendous as the oceans. However, Jian Chen could sense that the power did not seem to be very offensive at all. It only possessed a natural advantage over the evil spirit, and it was exactly because of this advantage that its gentle powers could bring great harm to the evil spirit. At the same time, Jian Chen could clearly sense that the tremendous power hidden within the primordial god silk was being drained at a terrifying rate. Clearly, the primordial god silk was consuming its power to deal with the powerful evil spirit outside, and it was consuming the power rapidly. The primordial god silk won't be able to keep the crisis in check for long. We have to remove the threat before all of its power is used up. Jian Chen knew that time was tight. Without any deliberation, his consciousness returned to his own body after he refined the primordial god silk. The primordial god silk could deal with the crisis of the world, but the primordial god silk was not necessarily able to eliminate it. He had learnt from the sword spirits that there were times in history where the crisis of the world counterattacked and suppressed the primordial god silk instead, ultimately destroying it and all the life in the world. Jian Chen could immediately sense that he had gained a connection with the primordial god silk after sending his consciousness back to his body. At that moment, he seemed to feel that the primordial god silk had become a part of himself as if it was his arm or leg. He could control it as he wished, except he had just refined the primordial god silk, so he was still extremely unfamiliar towards the silk's usage and control. However, it was also at this time that Jian Chen suddenly sensed an extremely great threat. The threat was not from Jian Chen but the primordial god silk. The evil spirit seemed to have charged up all its power at that moment. Its blood-red mist had condensed into a 300-meter-tall figure and devastating energy pulsed wildly. The power was so great that Jian Chen's expression immediately changed drastically. The evil spirit had already finished charging up its strongest attack. It wanted to smash through the primordial god silk's restraint in a single blow. Jian Chen obviously understood this. He knew that the evil spirit's attack was extraordinary from the sense of threat. Even though the primordial god silk specialized in suppressing the evil spirit, this strike would bring devastating damage. Jian Chen bellowed out and utilized his connection with the primordial god silk to control the power hidden within with great unfamiliarity, pushing the primordial god silk to its peak power. Immediately, the primordial god silk shone with dazzling light. It was as resplendent as the sun, illuminating the dark space. Under Jian Chen's control, the power within had all surged out, and the evil spirit's figure immediately began to disperse at a rapid rate under the glow. The primordial god silk could display much greater power after Jian Chen refined it. However, Jian Chen could not lighten up at all because the sense of threat from the primordial god silk did not lessen at all. Instead, it even grew in intensity. The Spirit King also sensed the devastating power being charged up in the evil spirit. His face changed. Without any hesitation, he immediately retreated as quickly as he could, shooting off into the distance in a split second. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion that could shake the entire universe erupted. The devastating power that the evil spirit had been charging up exploded loudly, rampaging through space as an unimaginably terrifying force. It destroyed and collapsed whole regions of space, reducing them to darkness. At that moment, the evil spirit had used a move akin to self-destruction. In order to break free from the primordial god silk, it went as far as using all its power to explode with the greatest force it could display. If it did not take such action, it would not have been able to break free from the primordial god silk. Not only was its power being eaten away under the restraint of the primordial god silk, its ability to devour the essence of the universe was being suppressed as well. The primordial god silk was like a tiny boat on the raging seas before the violent power. It began to tremble and shake as its golden light flickered. The power within it was being consumed at a shocking rate. Blood sprayed from Jian Chen's mouth, and he shot backwards like a cannonball. In the end, If the primordial god Silk had not blocked over 80% of the power, he probably would have died from the self-destruction of the evil spirit. Even though it was just less than 20% of the power, he still suffered extremely severe injuries. The primordial god Silk became dimmer and dimmer. After the devastating attack struck it, it only endured for a few seconds before snapping gently in the end. Its golden light was completely extinguished, and the violent power swallowed it. A huge black hole had formed in the center of the explosion. The energy in the surroundings churned as it shook up space. The black hole possessed a terrifying force of suction, swallowing up everything in its surroundings. It was also because of this black hole that the terrifying energy from the explosion did not expand much as the force of suction restrained it. Not only were a few neighboring asteroids and planets sucked off course and gradually approached the black hole, even all the planet that the Tianyuan continent was on, the two halves of the moon, and the sun slowly moved towards the black hole. The origin realm experts of the two worlds who had gathered just above the planet moved together. They controlled the god-slaying formation and produced a resplendent sword chi that shot off into the distance. It ripped through space and created a boundary between the planet and the black hole to stop its suction. The black hole was terrifying, it could devour everything, but their attack from the god-slaying formation neared godhood, so they could resist its power. Has the crisis been eliminated? Jian Chen stood in the distance as he bathed in radiant saint force. He stared ahead with a pale face. He still possessed a weak connection with the primordial god Silk. He knew it had snapped, but what he was truly worried about right now was the crisis. However, the existence of the black hole before them from the destruction of space prevented them from extending their souls over there even though the suction was nothing to them. Dahaha, it has finally been destroyed. Without that thing which suppresses my existence, how will the food resist me now? At this moment, a thought expanded and steeped through space. Red mist churned near the black hole. In a short while, it condensed back into the figure of the evil spirit. The black hole did not affect it at all despite their proximity. However, it was clearly weaker than before. Chapter 16:16, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 6. Jian Chen's heart suddenly sank when the evil spirit's thought expanded. His face became extremely ugly. The evil spirit did not actually disperse after the terrifying explosion, and now that the primordial god Silk had snapped, how could he and the Spirit King face the evil spirit's power? But very soon, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the blood-red figure that stood near the gaping black hole. He could clearly sense that the evil spirit had become much weaker after the explosion that was similar to self-destruction. Jian Chen still felt a great threat from it, but it was no longer undefeatable like before. Jian Chen felt like the evil spirit was now an enemy he could realistically fight. Jian Chen's eyes immediately lit up. Under the recovery powers of the radiant saint force in his chaotic body, Jian Chen healed at a rapid rate. However, he did not waste time continuing to heal. Before he had fully recovered, a surging presence radiated from his body. The twin swords shone brightly as well. He gripped the Ziying sword tightly with his bloodied hand and seemed to turn into a great sword himself. A violet light engulfed him, and he shot off as a stream of light, stabbing towards the evil spirit with lightning speed. As he rapidly approached the black hole, the force of suction grew more and more powerful. It could devour planets, light, and all energies and objects, but it was unable to devour Jian Chen or the light from the twin swords. With Jian Chen's strength, he could ignore the force of suction completely. No matter how closely he approached the black hole, he could break free easily. He was only at reciprocity, but his battle prowess had reached godhood, making him a godlike existence in the lower world. He was so powerful that he could shake the world and annihilate stars. At the same time, the Spirit King also noticed that the evil spirit had weakened. Without any hesitation, he charged towards the evil spirit with lightning speed as well. From afar, Jian Chen and the Spirit King seemed to have become two bright comets. The resplendent light from their swords filled outer space with color. They charged towards the huge hole in space with devastating power. Wherever they passed by, they would leave behind great cracks in space, creating a river of darkness. The evil spirit became angered when it sensed Jian Chen and the Spirit King's intentions. It roared out loudly. The roar turned into a thought that wreaked havoc through space. In its eyes, both Jian Chen and the Spirit King were only food. Since they were food, they should have waited for it to slowly enjoy them, yet not only had the food weakened it such an extent, they had tried to resist time and time again. To the evil spirit, this was a naked provocation, something it could not accept. The evil spirit's humanoid figure suddenly dispersed and turned into a ball of dense red mist. The mist spun rapidly, drawing over all the essence in the surroundings. It did not just absorb the essence of the universe, but the energy in the surroundings as well. It had directly engaged in a fight against the black hole. Jian Chen and the Spirit King could sense their vitality become unstable as they rapidly shot over as well. It was like the whirlpool the evil spirit had formed was drawing their vitality from their bodies. The evil spirit possessed a natural ability of devouring. Without the restraint of the primordial god Silk, it demonstrated this ability once again. If the evil spirit was in its peak condition, Jian Chen and the Spirit King would fail to resist at all if it wanted to devour Jian Chen and the Spirit King's vitality. However, it had weakened drastically after exploding. Even though it had evaded death, its current strength neared Jian Chen and the Spirit King's. As a result, it was extremely difficult for the evil spirit to devour both of their vitality. In the end, the devouring force failed to approach the two of them under their full resistance. Goddammit. It's all because that damned bastard's made me consume too much power. If it weren't for him, I would have never ended up like this, where I can't even devour food. If I were in my peak condition, that damned presence would not have been able to do anything to me at all, the evil spirit roared out in resentment. As soon as it thought of that bastard, it would grind its teeth in hatred. A massive blood-red fist condensed and the evil spirit released a mental pulse, which shot towards Jian Chen and the Spirit King with devastating might. The fist was extremely large, and it engulfed the two of them as soon as it appeared. Linear lightning release. Jian Chen bellowed out and used the same technique again. Lightning immediately began to crackle around him, and his speed skyrocketed. He shot towards the blood-red fist as a bolt of lightning. This was one of the most powerful techniques he had grasped so far. However, it was so fast that even Jian Chen had to face some risks. After all, the huge, black hole was right in front of him. As he moved so fast that he could not control himself, he could end up directly charging into the black hole if he was carelessness. However, he had no other choice. He could already see the evil spirit devouring energy to recover. He needed to personally stop the attack and let the Spirit King heavily injure the evil spirit. Otherwise, the evil spirit would be even more difficult to deal with once it recovered some strength. They might even end up losing their hope for victory. Boom! Jian Chen collided heavily with the blood-red fist. The electricity around him flickered a few times before dispersing completely. Jian Chen vomited blood. The attack had blown him away. His organs had turned to mush at that moment, and most of his bones had broken. He had already suffered heavy injuries, and this just worsened his condition. On the other hand, the blood-red fist began to collapse rapidly as well. Jian Chen had paid a heavy price to stop the evil spirit's attack. The collapse of the blood-red fist removed all obstacle before the Spirit King. He shot into the evil spirit's whirlpool as a resplendent stream of light. Will that splits the heavens, the sword extends and galaxies extinguish. The Spirit King's voice rang out from the evil spirit's whirlpool. His voice was sharp and swift, like an angry roar. There was a tinge of craziness within it, as well as tremendous pain that was evident to anyone. The blood-red whirlpool began to tremble violently. A blurry star chart seemed to have conjured within the whirlpool, erupting with endless power. It was utterly devastating, where just a single strand of its presence could annihilate large swathes of space. Chapter 16-17, A Bloody Battle Against the Evil Spirit. 7. The whirlpool the evil spirit formed immediately began to collapse. Due to the immense might of the blurry star chart, most of the red mist directly dispersed, seemingly vaporized completely, making the red mist even thinner. At the same time, the presence of the evil spirit rapidly weakened. In the end, it seemed to have dropped below godhood. Even the gaping black hole countless kilometers in diameter trembled at that moment. Its suction began to wane, showing signs of collapse. The second move of the Spirit King's will that splits the heavens possessed extraordinary power. At the moment where the evil spirit had been at its weakest state, the Spirit King had dealt the heaviest strike possible, to the point where even the huge black hole next to the evil spirit seemed affected. The Spirit King had not grasped the second move completely, having used it forcefully this time. He had paid an extremely severe price, burning up 40% of his soul. He endured unimaginable pain. At the same time, Jian Chen dragged his injured body over. A dense layer of radiant Saint Force origin energy coated his body as he charged towards the evil spirit aggressively with the Ziying sword in hand. He was grievously injured, wounded to the point where if someone else possessed the same strength as him they would not be able to endure it. However, the eighth layer of the chaotic body gifted him with an extremely tenacious vitality and a tough body, so even with such wounds, he could continue fighting and demonstrate strength at godhood. Currently, the evil spirit extremely weak. It struggled to maintain its strength at godhood and seemed to be about to drop below that realm at any time. It immediately turned into a red mist to flee, and to no surprise, it fled towards the Tianyuan continent. There were countless lives on the Tianyuan continent, just origin realm experts numbered in the several dozens. In the eyes of the evil spirit, it was a great, delicious feast. As long as it could devour them, it could recover some energy in a very short amount of time. Jian Chen stared at the evil spirit coldly as it flew towards the Tianyuan continent. Sensing the evil spirit's weakness, he immediately felt less unsettled. He did not immediately charge off towards the Tianyuan continent to support after a moment of deliberation. Instead, he used his vague connection with the primordial god Silk to identify its location. It hovered near the black hole. Although its powers had been severely drained, there was still a tiny sliver of it left, preventing it from being sucked into the dark hole. Jian Chen only rushed off to the Tianyuan continent after grabbing the primordial god Silk. The experts of the two worlds were completely battle-ready as they stood in outer space, forming two lines of defense. The Origin Realm experts stood at the very front with their god-slaying formation, while Shangguan Mu'er sat there sternly. Her zither was ready as well, placed across her knees. Behind them, the sainthood experts from the two worlds formed the second line of defense with their various formations. At this moment, the god-slaying formation began to shine, producing a powerful ripple of energy. The palm-sized scroll hovered in the air. Under the control of all the Origin Realm experts from the two worlds, it created a formation space to trap the approaching evil spirit. Strands of powerful sword chi condensed in the formation space, rushing towards the evil spirit from all directions. Each strand of sword chi possessed shocking strength. They were still rather weaker compared to attacks from Jian Chen and the Spirit King, but they still managed to reach the lowest levels of godhood. However, the god-slaying formation still failed to keep the weakened evil spirit trapped. The formation shook violently before erupting with a boom. The formation space collapsed, and the glow from the scroll dulled, the powerful ripples of energy had blown it away. The evil spirit charged out as a red mist, but it seemed even lighter in color than before. The evil spirit had destroyed the god-slaying formation in the blink of an eye, but the formation had shaved away at the evil spirit's power as well. However, The Origin Realm experts who took part in controlling the formation all vomited blood after being hit with a great backlash. At the same time, pleasant zither sounds suddenly appeared. It seemed like some otherworldly music to the ears of the experts from the two worlds, but when it reached the evil spirit's soul, it seemed to explode like roaring thunder, causing the evil spirit's soul to become unstable. Its consciousness actually wavered. With the music, visible musical notes shot towards the evil spirit like sharp swords in the form of ripples, causing the mist to tremble slightly. Some of the red mist immediately began to disperse from the sound attack. The red mist was the original form of the evil spirit as well as its core of power. The evil spirit's presence rapidly declined as the red mist dispersed. However, the evil spirit could only endure it silently right now, enduring its decline in strength as it directly charged for the Tianyuan continent. There was a lot of life on the Tianyuan continent. Even if it was in its peak condition, it still would feel tempted. It directly charged over from the depths of space regardless of the consequences. It was constantly being attacked and had become very weak now, but as long as it could devour the tremendous life forces present on the Tianyuan continent, it could recover in the shortest amount of time possible. It targeted the countless mortals who lived on the Tianyuan continent, as well as weaker cultivators. It did not plan to devour the Origin Realm experts. It could easily devour Origin Realm experts in its peak condition, but it was too weak now. Since all the Origin Realm experts had gathered together, it needed some time before it could devour them all. However, with Jian Chen's pursuit, there was just not enough time. As a result, it could only turn its eyes towards the weaker mortals and cultivators. Their lives could not be compared to the lives of Origin Realm experts, but it could effortlessly devour them. It could devour all of their lives to recover in a single moment. Boom! With the sound, the great formations the various sainthood experts of the two worlds erected began to clash with the evil spirit. However, they shattered in a single moment, and the evil spirit immediately expanded as red mist, enveloping over 100 saint emperors nearby and devouring their lives in a single moment. However, when it wanted to devour even more saint emperors, the evil spirit sensed that Jian Chen was shooting over in pursuit, so it could not help but pause. For some reason, its heart trembled when it discovered the snapped primordial god silk in Jian Chen's hand. It no longer tried to devour the saint emperors in the surroundings and instead shot off towards the Tianyuan continent with lightning speed. It formed a huge whirlpool, and an extremely terrifying force of suction appeared, draining all the essence and presence of life from the surroundings. Immediately, all the vegetation in a radius of several 100,000 kilometers withered. The mountains and rivers all grayed, losing all signs of life. All the mortals in the surroundings instantly had their lives drained away from them, they were reduced to dried corpses. Following them were various cultivators, starting with saints and great saints, they all lost their life force as they passed away. Saint Masters, Great Saint Masters, and Earth Saint Master were next. In the blink of an eye, countless people in the region were reduced to corpses. The Origin Realm experts in outer space watched on coldly. They chased behind the evil spirit with the god-slaying formation hurriedly. Countless people would die in the world every day, but countless children would be born as well. They did not care about the deaths of these people at all. Instead, they cared about the fact that these deaths would allow the evil spirit to recover, which they needed to stop. Jian Chen's face was extremely sunken, a layer of bright, violet light shrouded him. He rushed towards the Tianyuan continent as quickly as he could. Chapter 16:18, Helplessness. The evil spirit possessed an extraordinary ability to devour. It had the innate ability to devour the energy of all things in the world. All the rivers and mountains lost their signs of life under the terrifying force of devouring. Large regions grayed, and in just a short moment, a radius of several 100,000 kilometers descended into a deathly silence. There were many kingdoms of various sizes and countless cities in that range, but everything instantly went quiet, including all the bustling streets throughout the cities and kingdoms. Countless mercenaries and merchants collapsed at the same time. All the life force and vital energies from their bodies had been drained, reducing them to cold corpses. These people had completely died soundlessly. They could not put up any resistance with their puny strength, and they were reduced to corpses in a single moment. They could not even react. Their faces even remained the same as before their deaths. Although Earth Saint Masters managed to last a little longer, they still could not avoid dying under the terrifying suction force. In just a few seconds, the force had drained away all the life in them. The evil spirit's range expanded and the devouring power became weaker as a result. It was able to instantaneously devour the lives of over 100 saint emperors because they were extremely close to him. However, now that it had expanded its range to hundreds of thousand kilometers away, its devouring force had obviously weakened drastically, allowing even Earth Saint Masters to last a few seconds. With that, the strands of vital energies and life force gathered from all directions before turning into a huge whirlpool completely composed of life force and vital essence. All of this fused into the evil spirit, so its presence gradually strengthened. Although the people it had devoured were very weak, it had devoured a vast quantity, completely reaching into the 100 millions, so it had reached the point where it was impossible to measure. It would be terrifying if the life force of so many gathered together. If it had enough time, the evil spirit would be able to recover a lot, even if it could not return to its peak condition. Everyone attack! We have to stop it! Shangguan Mu'er cried out. She was stern and began playing her zither with as much effort as she could. With her peak mid-reciprocity strength, she could not achieve much by fighting the evil spirit alone. She could only use her specialty and attack the evil spirit's soul using her music to achieve greater results. Attacks to the soul were profound and wondrous. They were extremely difficult to block. Experts from both worlds would be extremely pained when faced against soul attacks. They could only endure it forcefully, with no other alternative. The evil spirit was the same. Under Shangguan Mu'er's disturbance, its misty whirlpool immediately began to tremble. Although Shangguan Mu'er would not be able to injure the evil spirit's consciousness even with her full strength, she could slow down the evil spirit's rate of absorption with her music. The Origin Realm experts from the two worlds headed over as quickly as they could. However, a violet streak of light suddenly ripped through space and shot towards the evil spirit at a speed several times faster than them, surpassing them in an instant. Jian Chen had hurried back as quickly as he could from outer space. He stared at the evil spirit coldly as the twin swords hovered above his head. He held a strand of the primordial god silk in each hand, attempting to agitate the power hidden inside with all that he could muster. Immediately, the primordial god silk shone with golden light, except it was much dimmer than before. Swish! The strand of silk in Jian Chen's left hand shot out with lightning speed. It formed a massive golden net in the air and trapped the evil spirit, using its power to suppress the evil spirit's devouring ability. Meanwhile, the strand in Jian Chen's left hand became sharp like a sword and directly stabbed into the evil spirit's whirlpool. First, the evil spirit was enveloped by the golden net, causing its process of devouring to come to a halt. However, the primordial god silk was unable to suppress the evil spirit completely this time, so it only caused its devouring process to slow down. As the second strand of silk stabbed into the evil spirit like a sword, the whirlpool only shook a few times before returning to its previous state. Jian Chen's heart sank at the sight of this. Clearly, the snapped silk was no longer enough to deal with the evil spirit even though some of its power still remained. Even with the evil spirit weakened so much, the threat that the primordial god silk posed was nowhere near the same as before. Dahahaha, I was right. Now that the thing that suppresses me is broken, it won't be able to harm me much at all. There's no need for me to fear it anymore. Sustenance, I'd like to see just how much longer you want to struggle. You will all be devoured by me, the evil spirit emitted a mental pulse. Jian Chen snorted coldly, although the primordial god Silk doesn't pose a great threat to you anymore, do not forget that there's me. As long as I exist, you won't be able to recover any strength at all." With that, the twin swords shot through the evil spirit as two streaks of light, causing the evil spirit's presence to weaken. Dahahaha, I am an indestructible existence. Food will never be able to kill me unless there's something that specially suppresses me. Even if I am rapidly weakening, I can recover just by devouring the essence in space. My powers are endless, while yours will only be consumed. Once you run out of energy, you will live up to your fate of being food." The evil spirit laughed aloud. Then it turned into a red mist, escaped from the net, and shot off into the distance. As it moved, the surrounding essence of the world rapidly gathered towards it. Jian Chen's face became ugly. Now that the primordial god Silk had broken, its powers had weakened and had almost run out. It was nowhere near enough to keep the evil spirit completely trapped. Once the evil spirit recovered some strength, dealing with it would be extremely difficult. "Don't you dare try recovering," Jian Chen said coldly before pursuing it immediately. Since a strand of primordial god Silk was unable to keep it trapped, he used the two strands together. Under his control, the two strands fell onto the evil spirit as a huge net. Although the primordial god Silk was unable to keep the evil spirit trapped, the evil spirit was unable to dodge it either, so it became wrapped up once again. The two strands wove together and immediately became even greater than before, but it was still not enough to keep the evil spirit trapped. It was only able to suppress the evil spirit's powers and only to a certain degree. The evil spirit let loose a strange laughter. It did not bother fighting Jian Chen and fled as mist once again. It was just too weak right now, so it was unable to kill Jian Chen if they fought. At the same time, it would become even weaker if it took on attacks from Jian Chen. It only wanted to devour plenty of lives right now. Once it recovered some strength, it would be able to kill Jian Chen. Chapter 1619, Surrounding the evil spirit. Jian Chen pursued closely. Although the primordial god Silk could not keep the evil spirit trapped, he controlled it to turn into two nets and move along with the evil spirit. The nets would go wherever the evil spirit went, sticking to the evil spirit like leeches. They suppressed the evil spirit's power to devour, so it was unable to use its abilities to their full capability. Jian Chen controlled the twin swords to constantly attack the evil spirit as well. They shone with a dazzling light as they pierced through the evil spirit with devastating might. The evil spirit would become much weaker with each attack. "Sustenance, you cannot kill me. I am indestructible. You are all just making a pointless struggle," the evil spirit roared out, but it did not fight Jian Chen. However, it fled as fast as it could, and its speed exploded all of a sudden. With a flash, it crossed several thousand kilometers as if it had teleported. Space seemed to fold up before it as it fled. Whenever it passed through a fold, it seemed to teleport by several thousand kilometers. To no surprise, it fled in the direction where the presence of life was the heaviest. "Sustenance, I want to devour large quantities of food. As long as I recover some strength, I won't need to fear him anymore. I'll even devour him," thought the evil spirit. As it fled, it just happened to pass by a city. The city seemed to have reached first class in size, possessing a population of several million. The people who lived here were relatively weak, with the strongest only being Earth Saint Masters. The evil spirit continued to flee, but it slowed down slightly. As it flew past the city as a red mist, it immediately produced a terrifying suction, quickly draining away the several million lives into the sky like a long river. The evil spirit had absorbed all their lives. The city was not particularly large, only with an area of several tens of thousand kilometers squared. As a result, the evil spirit's devouring powers did not weaken at all and instead strengthened even though it was currently suppressed due to the size. It sucked away all the lives and vital energies from several million people, reducing the bustling place to a ghost city. However, devouring the entire city's population took less than a single second. The evil spirit did not stop for any longer and continued towards the next city. 2 more seconds passed after the evil spirit had left and a resplendent streak of violet light shot through the sky. It crossed the city like a bolt of lightning, disappearing into the horizon instantly. It directly pursued the evil spirit. Jian Chen's face was terrifyingly sunken within the violet light. His soul was now powerful enough to envelop the entire planet. Obviously, he saw exactly what had happened to the city earlier, so it made his killing intent surge. Several million people had met their end by having their lives drained away in a single moment. Moreover, all of this was due to the evil spirit ahead. Unfortunately, the evil spirit was determined to flee, using all its abilities to cross through space as quickly as possible. Space seemed to fold up before it, so it moved extremely fast. Jian Chen would not be able to catch up instantly. Very soon, the two of them passed over a dozen cities. Without any exceptions, the evil spirit's arrival at each city would lead to a devastating disaster. The lives of all the people would be drained instantly and the evil spirit's strength slowly began to recover after devouring so many lives. Its presence was gradually strengthening. Jian Chen was stern, and he said grimly from behind, "We can't let this evil power devour anything more. We have to use everything we have to stop it. Everyone, stand in scattered formations in front of the evil power. If the evil power approaches you, keep it busy with all you have. As long as you can keep it busy for a single moment, I'll be able to arrive and assist you." Jian Chen's voice rang out in the ears of all the Origin Realm experts from both worlds. Immediately, all of them stood in many formations, forming a huge blockade in the path that the evil spirit would pass through using space gates before the space was disturbed. They tried to keep the evil spirit busy for some time. All of them were extremely grim because they knew that their powers would weaken since they were scattered. They might be reduced to food without even lasting for a single second against the evil spirit. However, they had no alternative now. Although there was a portion of them that would be devoured before Jian Chen could even make it in time, at least there was a chance for them to keep the evil spirit slightly busy. They would die anyway if the evil spirit recovered a certain amount of power. The evil spirit continued in the same direction when it sensed their actions. It produced a strange laughter and directly charged towards the region with the fewest people. The weakest among them were sainthood experts, so their life force was many times greater than ordinary people. The evil spirit would be able to recover quite a lot if it devoured them. "Oh no, it's heading towards us. Everyone be alert. We must use our full power, or we won't even be able to last a second," a saint emperor said grimly among the sainthood experts. Without any hesitation, he immediately poured his full power into his formation to face the evil spirit that was charging towards them. 4 old men that wielded metal swords hovered towards the back of the group. They were also extremely stern as they radiated with a surging sword intent. "Sword formation of slaughter," one of the old men called out. Before he had even finished talking, the 4 of them stood in a sword formation with extremely fluid movements. They radiated with a supreme sword intent. The 4 of them were clearly only saint emperors, yet even receival experts would feel an extremely great sense of threat from their sword formation. "Slaughter!" the 4 old men called out loudly. Their voices reverberated through the surroundings and an extremely powerful sword intent immediately expanded. The 4 old men shone with a resplendent light and moved together. They charged towards the red mist like a huge divine sword. The 4 old men were Ada and his brothers. Although their sword formations could threaten the Origin Realm and even kill receival experts, the attack was clearly not enough to catch the evil spirit's eyes. The evil spirit punched out and a fist that was condensed from the red mist, colliding against the 4 brothers with devastating might. With a boom, their sword formation collapsed. The 4 of them all vomited blood and flew backwards. Although their sword formation was not weak, the disparity in strength compared to the evil spirit was just too great. However, the part of the fist that was condensed from dense mist had clearly been shaved off after the collision with the sword formation. What is this power? It's clearly puny, yet it gives me a slight sense of threat. The evil spirit thought in surprise. It could sense how extraordinary the sword chi was, but it did not think too much of it. Immediately, it turned into a cloud of red mist and shot towards the four brothers. It even enveloped the sainthood experts who attempted to stop it with formations, beginning to devour their lives. Whether it was the four brothers or the saint emperors, they all began to wither at a visible rate within the red mist. Their life force and their essence were being drained away at an extremely terrifying rate. Chapter 1620, Changes to the Sword Chi. At that moment, wrinkles rapidly appeared on the old faces of the four brothers. Although the four of them were already old, they were still ruddy. They seemed to be in their 60s or 70s, but their skin was filled with life like an infant's. However, as the evil spirit wildly devoured their life force, their faces immediately aged. Even their silver hair darkened. Their bodies became even skinnier than before as their life force and vital energies were drained away. For swords as one. The four of them cried out together and their presence suddenly changed. They erupted with powerful sword chi as the metal swords in their hands shone with white light. As the light flickered, the four swords seemingly fused as one, erupting with great sword chi that seemed to far exceed their own strength to resist the devouring force. With their full resistance, the rate at which their life force was being siphoned away immediately slowed down. The sword formation used by the four of them were even more powerful than ones that required several dozen sainthood experts. Nearby, there was another group of sainthood experts who had been enveloped by the red mist from the evil spirit. There were several hundred of them in the group, but most of them were saint rulers and saint kings, without many saint emperors. Even when they poured their strength together to create a formation, they struggled to hold their ground against the evil spirit's terrifying force. In just a short moment, all the saint rulers died as their life force had been drained away in the group. Even most of the weaker saint kings suffered the same fate, while the few saint emperors there aged rapidly. They all became extremely old as their presence rapidly weakened. On the other hand, the evil spirit was gradually recovering after absorbing the vitality and life force from the people. Its presence was rapidly strengthening. Space trembled violently high in the sky. A terrifying pressure fell as the Origin Realm experts of both worlds rushed over with the God-slaying formation. The God-slaying formation shone with a hazy glow, enveloping the evil spirit below. At the same time, Shangguan Mu'er sat in the air as she played her zither. She was stern and concentrated, using her music to disturb the evil spirit. As her slender fingers danced across the strings gently, she played notes after notes which crushed towards the evil spirit's soul. The space behind her distorted violently as 36 ripples had appeared. Each ripple was 10,000 kilometers in length, stretching from one horizon to the other. The 36 ripples in space seemed to have created a zither. However, only 12 of the strings trembled among the 36. A power sword chi expanded from outer space. The Spirit King rushed towards the Tian Yuan continent with his metal sword and a pale face. He had paid an extremely heavy price from forcefully using the second move of a will that splits the heavens, so he became extremely weak, but his presence was still enough to shake the entire planet. A violet streak of light shot through the air with unbelievable speed behind the evil spirit. Jian Chen charged towards the evil spirit with surging killing intent, but he was just too distant from the evil spirit, so he required a few distance even when he traveled at full speed. However, a few seconds was more than enough for experts like that to do a lot of things. The evil spirit knew that once Jian Chen and the Spirit King caught up, it would not die, but it would lose all the energy it had absorbed earlier. As a result, it immediately devoted itself to devouring as quickly as possible without any hesitation. In just half a second, all the people within the red mist, aside from the 4 brothers, passed away. Even the Saint Emperors had all their energy drained away. Although the 4 brothers held in there with great difficulty with their sword formation, they clearly could last for much longer. The evil spirit was just too powerful. Even though their sword formation was extraordinary, they were unable to achieve the impossible with their strength at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Emperor. They had reached the end of their line. The 4 brothers had considered charging out of the red mist, but the mist came from the evil spirit, so being enveloped was basically equivalent to being sucked into the evil spirit's body. When Jian Chen had used the linear lightning release before, he failed to charge out even with his speed, so it was even more impossible for the 4 of them. As a result, the 4 of them were forced into defending within the red mist. They were unable to escape at all. The god-slaying formation fell rapidly from above the evil spirit, but due to their distance, the formation required a moment before it could get close to the evil spirit. The evil spirit looked at the 4 brothers and produced a strange laughter. It said, "Although you 4 are very weak, my instincts tell me that you are very different from the others, as if I would benefit greatly if I devour the 4 of you. Bahaha, the 2 who can threaten me need some time before they can arrive to save you. That's more than enough for me to devour you. I am filled with anticipation in regards to what I will gain after devouring you." Desire filled the evil spirit's thoughts. Without any hesitation, it immediately devoted itself to devouring the 4 brothers. It could afford to ignore the god-slaying formation, but it needed to take on Jian Chen and the Spirit King carefully. As a result, it needed to devour the 4 of them before Jian Chen and the Spirit King had arrived. As the evil spirit began to target the 4 brothers, the sword formation from the 4 brothers was able to endure it, but it could not last for much longer. In just a single moment, 99% of their life force and vital energies had been drained away. The flame of their lives dimmed and could be extinguished at any time. As a result, their sword formation collapsed as well. Jian Chen and the Spirit King are about to arrive. "We will die without regrets if we can keep you busy for just a little longer," the 4 brothers smiled. They felt no fear towards death. Instead, they felt at ease. Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed as he hurried over as quickly as possible. He suddenly turned his head towards his right arm. He had been assisted by the 4-sword chi from the very top of the Inata Tower when he took it for himself. It was exactly because of the sword chi that he managed to kill the tower spirit and make it to the 9th floor, allowing him to obtain the treasured tower. After being used many times, the 4-sword chi did not completely disperse, but they were only effective against receival experts. To Jian Chen, the 4 strands of residual sword chi were no longer of any use to him. After all, a casual strike from him would have reached reciprocity with his current strength, and if he used his full force, it would reach godhood. It was impossible for the 4 strands of sword chi to match up to that, so he no longer paid too much attention to the 4 strands of sword chi. However, Jian Chen could clearly sense that the sword chi slumbering in his arms suddenly began to tremble, as if their intelligence had been awakened. Before Jian Chen could think too much of it, the 4-sword chi materialized from his arm and shot off as a streak of white light, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Jian Chen immediately became surprised by this, because even with his current strength, he failed to sense just where the 4-sword chi had traveled off to. They seemed to have vanished into thin air, without any traces at all. A ball of white light suddenly appeared before the 4 brothers who were trapped in the red mist. The 4 strands of sword chi had silently entered the red mist, arriving before their foreheads as if it had teleported. Afterwards, the 4 balls of light shot into their heads without any hesitation at all. As the sword chi entered their heads, the smoldering flame of their lives immediately stopped weakening. Not only did it stop smoldering, it strengthened at an extremely terrifying pace, allowing their strength to suddenly erupt in that moment. In just a short moment, they completely recovered their peak strength, but it did not just stop there. Their presences continued to soar, far beyond their peak condition and beyond Saint Emperor, into the origin realm. The four brothers snapped open their eyes which were closing. Their gazes were not weak at all, but brimming with life instead. They were sharp like swords. The fusion of the four-sword chi allowed the four brothers to break through the ninth heavenly layer Saint Emperor in that moment and reach the origin realm. How is this possible? How? I almost devoured you and you had reached the end of the line, so how have you become so much more powerful now? The evil spirit let out a mental pulse of shock. It had been completely taken aback by how the four brothers were able to reach the origin realm under such circumstances. So what if you've become stronger? I can still devour you. This time, I'll devour you even if I have to pay a great price. My instincts can't be wrong. As long as I devour you, I will benefit greatly, said the evil spirit in determination. The four brothers looked at each other and saw the smear of shock in each other's eyes. In that moment, several extremely foreign sword techniques had actually appeared in their heads. Every single one of them possessed unfathomable might, making them extremely powerful. At the same time, it was perfectly compatible with the cultivation method they practiced. Chapter 1621, Time arrives at a standstill, the sword of mortality. Suddenly, ACI bellowed out. As his hands changed between the seals for his sword techniques, the metal sword in his hand began to levitate. It erupted with powerful sword chi and immediately began to shine with a blinding light as if it had become a sun. Meanwhile, the sword that was only 1.3 meters long instantly became more than 10 meters, hovering in the world like a divine weapon. Sword of Reincarnation. At the same time, Asen cried out like ACI. His hands changed between the seals as the metal sword in his hand also erupted with light. It radiated with an extremely powerful sword chi and instantly became over 10 meters in length. Sword of Slaughter. Air bellowed out just like ACI and Asen. Like the two before him, his sword changed as his hand seals changed. Each of the 3 10 meters long metal swords shone resplendently like scorching suns. They stood in a triangular formation, seemingly resonating with one another, and their power seemed to fuse together. Meanwhile, the extremely powerful sword chi shrouded Air, Asen, and ACI, obscuring their figures. However, a certain blurry sword chi seemed to be present on them from time to time, giving off a profound presence. The 3 strands of sword chi seemed to possess similar presences. However, upon closer inspection, it was quite evident that the 3 strands of sword chi possessed their own forms and minute differences. Each strand of sword chi possessed an extremely profound aura, except the aura was extremely weak and not obvious. It made it extremely difficult for other people to sense it. I actually can't devour your vitality. How is this possible? This is impossible. You're like ants, so why can't I devour you? The evil spirit's shocked voice rang out. At that moment, it had discovered in astoundment that he was unable to suck away any vitality or life force from the 3 brothers under the shroud of the 3-sword chi. At the same time, he even sensed a sliver of threat from the 3 of them. The sense of threat was nowhere near as intense as what it felt from Jian Chen or the Spirit King, but it just made the evil spirit shiver for some reason. It did not feel something like this even from the primordial god Silk. My instincts are telling me more and more that as long as I devour you, I will benefit tremendously. There is risk in all success, so screw it all. It's not like I can die. I'll devour you no matter how great the price will be. Soon after, the evil spirit completely ignored the sense of threat it felt from the 3 brothers. It made up its mind to devour the 4 of them regardless of the price. The red mist from the evil spirit immediately began to whirl rapidly. It enveloped the 4 brothers in a massive swirl, immediately producing an even greater force of suction. At the same time, it condensed 4 huge claws from its mist, reaching towards the 4 brothers in an attempt to destroy their protective shroud. Sword of Severance. As the claws condensed from the mist reached over, Ada called out at last. He arrived above the heads of the other three and stood between them. He raised his right hand over his head and pointed his sword at the sky, standing in a sword formation. Immediately, air, Asen, and ACIS power all gathered towards Ada. At that moment, the four of them entered an extremely special state. Not only had their powers completely fused together, even their vital energies and tremendous life force from just breaking through fused together, making them become even more powerful. Initial fusion of the four, resplitting the world. The four brothers called out together and they slashed out as hard as they could at the same time. The world seemed to freeze and time seemed to stop flowing when they struck out. In the entire world, only the four swords slowly advancing through space along a specific trajectory existed. As the four swords moved, they even repulsed the laws of the world as if they possessed a mysterious power that could cut through the laws of the world at that moment. This was not because of how shocking or powerful the four swords were. After all, the four brothers had only just broken through to the origin realm. With their strength at early receival, they would not be able to reach such an astonishing level even if they poured all their strength together. Their strike was so powerful because of the aura within their swords. As the four swords moved, the expressions of Jian Chen, the Spirit King, and even the several dozen Origin Realm experts who hurried over changed slightly because they could clearly feel that the entire world seemed to have undergone some minute changes at the moment. However, the part that shocked them even more was how they could truly feel that time had come to a standstill currently. Even though it was just a moment, it completely stunned them. Jian Chen and the Spirit King were affected in particular. Their hearts surged as disbelief flooded their faces. Just as how a person could see further the higher up they were, they knew extremely well just how impossible it was to affect the time of the entire world. It was impossible unless a person possessed tremendous cultivation. Even with their current strength, it was completely impossible for them to make the time in the world come to a standstill. This was not like freezing space. Freezing space could make everything fall into silence, making it seem similar to stopping time on the surface, but it was not truly stopping time. Instead, it was something that made it feel like time had stopped. In reality, time would continue to flow silently even if an entire region of space was frozen and everything there fell silent. The laws of the world would continue to operate silently. However, time had truly stopped moments before. Even though it was just a single moment, they had sensed it very clearly. This is the presence of the nirvanic sword formation. Impossible, this is impossible. How can the four of them grasp such a high-level sword formation? Moreover, it's impossible for them to use it even if they have grasped it with their current strength. Not only have they succeeded in using it the first time, but they even used it with such speed, Ziying and Qing Suo cried out in the twin swords. Kaya lay silently in a crystal coffin in white clothes within the Supreme Divine Hall from Mercenary City with her eyes closed. Suddenly, her eyelashes trembled gently as if she was trying to open her eyes. However, she failed no matter how hard she tried. In the end, she fell back into silence. A fist-sized little beast lay beside the coffin. It was the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast. It had always remained beside the crystal coffin in the past few years, and it had never taken a single step away from it. It did not even take part in the great battles outside. At this moment, the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast suddenly snapped open its eyes. An intelligent light flickered through its eyes, indicating that it already possessed extremely high intelligence. It stared outside and became stern. Fear and dread appeared in its eyes as well. As a divine beast, its instincts were extremely sensitive. It felt fear from the bottom of its heart from the ability that managed to influence the entire world. The elven god tree suddenly began to sway gently in the forbidden grounds of the elves. It began to shine with a layer of faint green light that was filled with a tremendous presence of life. The strongest god king of the god clan's soul woke up all of a sudden at that moment as well. Who is it? Who has influenced the time of this entire world? Adriana's voice was also filled with shock. Her soul extended rapidly soon after and enveloped the entire world in a single moment. Quickly, she understood everything. An evil spirit. I never thought that this world would actually give birth to an evil spirit. But who are those for? They're actually able to use such a heaven-defying skill with their strength at receival? That's just unbelievable. Although it's possible to influence the time of an entire world with great skills, the greater the skills are, the greater the requirement for the caster's strength. These 4 people are not simple. Are they like the snow goddess of the ice goddess Hall, the reincarnation of some great expert from the saints' world? Chapter 1622, Indestructible. 1. Adriana murmured inside as she became very interested in the 4 brothers. But I might be wrong. They might not be the reincarnation of some great expert from the saints' world. Maybe they can use such heaven-defying abilities because of other reasons. As she thought of that, her interest towards the 4 brothers immediately plummeted. I never thought that human kid called Jian Chen would grow so quickly. His strength has probably reached early deity now. I can feel that he has quite the accomplishment in his comprehension of laws as well. In the saints' world, there are countless origin realm experts stuck at peak reciprocity, unable to comprehend laws and step into godhood. Even in the saints' world, all those people able to comprehend laws before reaching the peak of reciprocity are prodigies. Basically all the people who are able to attain a comprehension like Jian Chen's before reaching peak reciprocity are geniuses groomed by large clans or sections. Once people like that become god kings, they'll definitely end up placing on the god king's throne as long as no accidents occurred. If Jian Chen does not die, his future potential is limitless. Adriana internally sighed in amazement. She had a very good opinion of Jian Chen, holding him in very high regard. And that other person is extraordinary as well, no less than Jian Chen. But it seems like he possesses the bloodline of the Spiritsages. The Spiritsages are a large race in the saints' world, except they've. Adriana sighed gently. Rumors have it that the evil spirit is extremely difficult to destroy. It is an existence that is almost indestructible. It's said that countless years ago, an evil spirit grew to a heaven-defying level, where even several grand primes working together could not handle it. In the end, it alerted the Anata Grand Prime. Although the evil spirit was nowhere near enough to be the opponent of the Anata Grand Prime, the Anata Grand Prime still needed to expend a tremendous amount of effort to kill the evil spirit in the end. I wonder if they can kill the evil spirit that has appeared in this world. It's a pity that although I am the greatest god king from the god clan, I'm unable to help them in my current state. Fortunately, Shui Yunlan has left, so the seal across the tunnel to the saints' world has been removed. Although I can't return to the saints' world through the tunnel without paying a price, I'll have to take the war god away with me even if I have to suffer the consequences on the condition that they can't stop the evil spirit. Adriana's tree that had been materialized from her life stood in the forbidden ground of the elves. Although it did not take part in the battle, it paid close attention to everything happening on the battlefield. However, when Adriana's soul swept across the Tianyuan continent, both Jian Chen and the Spirit King seemed to sense it. Jian Chen was not surprised. After all, he had learnt the existence of her long ago, but the Spirit King was astounded. He gazed in the direction of the elves on the wasteland continent with shock plastered across his face. He knew extremely well just how powerful the soul that swept past them just then was. It was just a soul, yet it made him feel like he was facing an entire universe. He felt as insignificant as an ant before the soul. Jian Chen, you must have sensed it as well. Who is that? I never thought there would be such a terrifying expert hidden here, the Spirit King said to Jian Chen through a communication technique. He was extremely stern. That's a god king who came down from the saints' world, but she was heavily injured in the past and still hasn't recovered. You don't need to pay heed to her, she won't interfere with the matters of this world. It's not like she has the power to interfere with the problem we're facing right now because she lost her body. Her remaining soul and the tremendous life force from before have transformed into a tree of life, said Jian Chen. A God King. The Spirit King's face changed slightly, and he immediately felt parched. God Kings were existences that had reached the very apex of godhood. Although he possessed the battle prowess of an early deity, his personal cultivation level still belonged to reciprocity. God King was still far too distant for him. I never thought your world concealed a God King. That's just unbelievable, the Spirit King sighed in amazement. Jian Chen smiled with deep meaning when he heard these words. He said, originally, we had 2 God Kings. The other God King was even more powerful. The God King that you've discovered just now was injured by the other one, except the other one has left this world already and returned to the Saints' world. The Spirit King sucked in a deep breath. What Jian Chen had told him was just too stunning. It reverberated through his mind like an explosion, causing his heart to surge. To both him and Jian Chen, God Kings were insurmountable, undefeatable existences. Even if they were just reduced to a soul, it was still enough to shock the world. Not to mention that there had even been a second God King who was even more powerful than the one he had just discovered, which deeply astounded the Spirit King. Who are you? What is this power? How is it so terrifying? A frightened mental pulse boomed through the surroundings. Everyone sensed it, and it snapped Jian Chen and the Spirit King out of their thoughts. The evil spirit that had become a swirl experienced a rapid decline in its presence. Very soon, it dropped to mid-reciprocity, early reciprocity, before directly falling below reciprocity. It did not stop there as its strength continued to decline, falling to late returnance, mid-returnance, and finally stabilizing at early returnance. Although Ada and his brothers remained at early receival, the sword formation from the 4 of them was just too powerful. It directly caused the evil spirit's late reciprocity strength to plummet to early returnance. The evil spirit was originally extremely powerful, to the point where even Jian Chen and the Spirit King were not its opponent when working together. However, the evil spirit suffered injury after injury since the battle had begun, so its strength was nowhere like before anymore. The red mist was its body, so every wisp dispersed would result in a loss of strength. The 4 brothers had dispersed most of the red mist with their attack earlier, dealing an extremely severe strike to the evil spirit, which was why its strength had plummeted so severely. However, the 4 brothers turned extremely pale after using the great sword formation. They became haggard and seemed extremely weak. Clearly, they had paid a price for using the sword formation. I want to devour you and regain my lost strength. The evil spirit roared crazily. It felt both shocked and furious right now. It had never thought that the 4 sources of sustenance that were not even powerful enough to draw its attention would actually manage to deal a heavy strike at the crucial moment. It could probably no longer escape from Jian Chen and the Spirit King's pursuit with its current strength. Chapter 1623, Indestructible, 2. This was all because as its strength declined, it would struggle to escape from Jian Chen and the Spirit King even if it tried to flee using the folds of space. This ability was directly proportional to its strength. Jian Chen, it'll be up to you next, Ada said to Jian Chen through a communication technique. His voice was extremely weak, he was now incapacitated. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. He turned into a blur and caught up with the evil spirit in a flash. He directly stabbed the red mist. This strike only flickered with resplendent white sword chi. Most of it was hidden inside without leaking out to prevent damaging the Tianyuan continent with its shockwaves. At the same time, the azure and violet glow had completely vanished. Jian Chen could sense that Adriana was constantly observing the events here. To avoid revealing the origins of the twin swords, he concealed the unique glow of the sword so that none of it was emitted. He knew that not all God Kings knew the origins of the twin swords, but he was unwilling to risk it. The Ziying sword stabbed into the red mist with powerful sword qi, immediately causing the red mist to churn violently. Jian Chen's attack did not contain his full strength, but it had just managed to reach the level of godhood. Wherever the sword passed by, the surrounding red mist would begin to disperse. The evil spirit's strength declined once again, dropping to receival from early returnants. When the evil spirit's strength was similar to or even greater than Jian Chen's, his attacks were unable to harm it much at all, allowing it to endure them relatively easily with its own strength. However, as it grew weaker, it gradually became more and more difficult for it to endure the godhood-level attacks from Jian Chen. Virtually every time he struck out would be enough to deal a heavy blow to the evil spirit and rapidly shave away its strength. At the same time, the Origin Realm experts with the God-slaying formation finally arrived. It rapidly descended from the air and enveloped the evil spirit, using its sword qi to injure the evil spirit. The Spirit King also returned from outer space. He stood opposite to Jian Chen and began to attack the evil spirit with his full strength. However, the two of them were just too powerful. They were able to fight recklessly in outer space, but they had to act extremely careful each time they struck out to avoid destroying the continent now. They completely concealed their energy without letting any of it leak out. Surrounded, the evil spirit was no longer able to devour the four brothers. At the same time, its strength became weaker and weaker after each attack, before dropping below the Origin Realm to sainthood. Jian Chen had charged into the evil spirit's red mist to save the four brothers who were still trapped in there. "You can never kill me, my sustenance. I am indestructible. No one can kill me," the evil spirit roared wildly. After dropping to sainthood, there was no longer any hope for it to escape. All it could do was curse secretly. If it had not wanted to devour the four brothers and benefit greatly, it would not have fallen to such a state, not only failing the devouring in the crucial moment but even getting heavily injured by the four of them. "Remove the God-slaying formation. Leave it to me and the Spirit King," Jian Chen said with a deep voice. The evil spirit had now become equivalent to a Saint Emperor, so they no longer required the God-slaying formation. In fact, the formation would even get in their way if it was maintained. Without any hesitation, the Origin Realm experts from the two worlds immediately removed the God-slaying formation. As soon as the formation was removed, Jian Chen controlled the primordial God Silk to keep the evil spirit trapped there, so it could not escape. The evil spirit charged into the primordial God Silk in various places constantly in an attempt to escape, but it could no longer break out of the netting with its current strength. Faced with Jian Chen and the Spirit King's attacks, its strength dropped once again, this time to the mortal realm. Its red mist vanished as well, revealing the evil spirit's core. The core was a fist-sized ball of red liquid. It seemed as demonic as blood, radiating with an extremely icy cold and evil presence. This was the core of the evil spirit. Only when it was destroyed would the evil spirit truly be vanquished. Jian Chen directly stabbed the evil spirit's core through the gaps in the net, but his move passed through the core. Not only had it failed to cut it in half, but not even a sliver of the core's power had been used up, as if his attack was useless against the core. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed at this scene. The Spirit King's face changed slightly as well. He slashed down and the outcome was the same as Jian Chen's move. The Cloud Stream sword passed through the core and failed to harm it at all. "You can't kill me. I am indestructible." A mental pulse spread out from the core with the wild laughter of the evil spirit. Its words contained a sense of mockery. It seemed to be mocking the sources of sustenance that were overestimating themselves. Jian Chen's face sank. With a cold snort, he used martial soul force with his soul at reciprocity. Immediately, a unique power completely condensed from the power of the soul suddenly appeared. The power was formless and unable to harm the physical body, but it especially targeted the soul. It then shot towards the evil spirit with a flash of light as a sharp sword under Jian Chen's control. Jian Chen still had not found the method to push martial soul force to its greatest potential in the past few years, but his soul had already reached reciprocity after all, so the usage of martial soul force immediately led to the permeation of a certain pressure in the surroundings. The expressions of all the origin realm experts of the two worlds changed when they felt this presence. To their shock, they discovered that this pressure suppressed their souls. Even though the pressure did not target them, basically all the receival experts among them could clearly feel a sense of dread from the depths of their souls. It was like their souls would immediately become extremely heavily injured if the pressure targeted them, their souls might even directly disperse. The pressure formed an extremely great threat towards all the receival experts present. Only the returnance experts managed to maintain their composure. Of course, they would feel the exact same feeling as the receival experts if the pressure targeted them. Martial soul force was an extremely great power, so great that it was enough to send chills down the spines of many people from the saints' world. Martial soul force could basically kill experts of the same level instantly, and martial soul force would still heavily injure even those stronger than the user. However, Jian Chen still had not grasped the method to use martial soul force, so he was unable to demonstrate its full potential. As a result, his martial soul force right now could only threaten those weaker than him. The martial soul force passed through the evil spirit's body as an invisible sword, but to Jian Chen's disappointment, it failed to harm the evil spirit as well. Chapter 1624, Indestructible, 3. Although the evil spirit possessed a consciousness, it was not a true living organism. Rather, it was an extremely unique existence. It was not bound by the laws of the world. It was impossible to kill it with normal methods. The weakened evil spirit had completely lost its ability to flee. The primordial god Silk had firmly trapped it. Both Jian Chen and the Spirit King attempted many methods to try and kill the evil spirit, but it seemed like its core was just as it had been described, an indestructible existence. No matter what attacks Jian Chen and the Spirit King used, they only managed to disperse the evil spirit's power and failed to harm its core. Master, it said that only the primordial god Silk can nullify the crisis of the world. You must use the power of the primordial god Silk to destroy it. The voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jian Chen's head, immediately filling Jian Chen with bitterness. He had considered using the primordial god Silk to kill the evil spirit long ago, but it had already been snapped into 2 segments, and the power within it was basically exhausted. The tiny amount remaining could only keep the evil spirit trapped. It was nowhere near enough to kill the evil spirit. He had also tried channeling his chaotic force into the primordial god Silk, but the outcome achieved was insignificant. Even if he poured all his chaotic force into the primordial god Silk, it would not be nearly enough to reach the power required to wipe out the evil spirit. He estimated that it still would not be enough even if the Spirit King, the Origin Realm experts, and the Sainthood experts from both worlds poured their powers together. The primordial god Silk's power was extremely unique. It was of exceedingly great quality, where Saint Force and Origin energy completely paled in comparison. The requirement to refine other energies into the primordial god Silk's power was obviously terrifying. Is the evil spirit really unkillable? Jian Chen murmured with a very heavy heart. The Spirit King's face also sank. He stared at the core of the evil spirit trapped in the primordial god Silk. He had also discovered that he was unable to do anything to the evil spirit. Since we can't kill it, it looks like we can only keep the evil spirit imprisoned for all eternity. Once we become even more powerful, we can come up with another method to kill it. I'll use the primordial god Silk as a seal and keep it trapped in the Inata Tower. Nothing should go wrong like that, Jian Chen thought. He really did not want to reveal the Inata Tower at this moment since Adriana was watching. After all, the Inata Tower was a famed treasure of the Inata Grand Prime. Its power was beyond doubt. Even though it was damaged, he believed that there would still be countless experts who were willing to go as far as to fight to the death for the tower. Once Adriana leaked the fact that he possessed the Inata Tower in the Saint's world, there would be no more peace for him. However, the power within the primordial god Silk was only being depleted, so the time the evil spirit could remain trapped was being reduced as well. He needed to find a way to imprison the evil spirit before the primordial god Silk's power was completely exhausted. Jian Chen had no confidence in imprisoning the evil spirit on the Tian Yuan continent or the world of Forsaken Saints. He could only think of two places where he could keep the evil spirit trapped, the first being the Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City, and the second being the Inata Tower. The Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City was in perfect shape, but in terms of quality, it was nowhere as great as the damaged Inata Tower. Jian Chen would never trust the Supreme Divine Hall to keep the evil spirit trapped, so the safest method could only be the Inata Tower. Jian Chen no longer worried about the Inata Tower being exposed after making up his mind. He immediately took it out so he could keep the evil spirit trapped in there. The Inata Tower stood in Jian Chen's hand as an inch-tall structure. Even though it had been shrunken, its surface riddled with sword qi still had a presence. Each strand of sword qi flickered with light and gave off shocking sword intent. However, the 4 strands of sword qi at the very top of the tower were dull and lifeless, making them stand out among the other dazzling sword qi. The moment Jian Chen took out the Inata Tower, the 4 brothers who a few Saint Emperor supported glanced over at the tower in his hand as if they had sensed something. Their dull eyes lit up at that moment. Without any exception, their eyes became fixated on the dull sword slashes, and they seemed to become lost. A mysterious force seemed to be drawing them over. It also filled them with a sense of familiarity as well as unfamiliarity. The damaged door to the first floor of the tower opened and a great force enveloped the evil spirit's core, dragging it towards the tower. The evil spirit's core trembled violently, resisting with its full strength. It sensed an extremely terrifying omen, so it could not afford to be sucked into the Inata Tower. Although the tower was damaged, it was still enough to send chills down its spine. However, the evil spirit was just too weak right now. It could not resist the tower under Jian Chen's control. Its core broke free from the primordial god Silk and inched towards the Inata Tower. This is all because of you, my sources of sustenance. Come, my second power. Tremble and shake before it. The evil spirit bellowed urgently with determination. After it bellowed, an extremely great spatial crack suddenly appeared in outer space. Within the crack was a blood-red world that shone a demonic red. An icy cold presence similar to the evil spirit's core leaked out. Jian Chen and the Spirit King's face suddenly changed when they saw this. Disbelief flooded their eyes. They could obviously tell that all the evil spirit's power was stored within the huge crack in space with their eyes. At the same time, the power was completely equivalent to what the evil spirit possessed in its peak condition. Impossible, Jian Chen and the Spirit King's faces paled slightly. All the Origin Realm experts and Sainthood experts of the 2 worlds felt despair. The evil spirit in its peak condition was so powerful and was undefeatable. If it had not used a method similar to self-destruction to break out of the primordial god Silk earlier, Jian Chen and the Spirit King would never have been able to dominate the evil spirit. Yet at this moment, just when they were about to suppress the evil spirit and achieve victory, they had never thought that the evil spirit would still be hiding such great power. This made Jian Chen and the Spirit King feel despair as well. Once the evil spirit returned to its peak strength, they would have nothing to fight against it. After all, the primordial god Silk had basically become useless and the Spirit King could no longer display his peak strength after paying the price from using the second move of a will that splits the heavens. We can't let the power descend. A sliver of determination and madness appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. He ignored all consequences as he urged the Inata Tower to suck away the evil spirit. However, the evil spirit seemed to have formed a connection with the tremendous power hidden within the spatial crack when it appeared. No matter what Jian Chen did, he was unable to suck the evil spirit into the Inata Tower. It was like he was not just sucking the evil spirit's core but the tremendously evil power in the crack as well. It was not that the Anata tower was not powerful enough, but Jian Chen was not strong enough. After all, the power hidden within the crack had completely exceeded his own strength. I absorbed the powers from that rock, except I was never able to completely fuse the powers of the rock. I was unable to control the two powers simultaneously with the strength of my consciousness as well, so I left the control of one of the powers to a fragment of my soul long ago. I hid it into a world I had carved out myself. All you have done is made me waste one of the powers I had absorbed from the rock. I planned on devouring you all so that my consciousness could become even more powerful, then fuse the two powers afterwards, but I never thought that you would all be much harder to deal with than I had thought. Forcing me to use my second power, a mental pulse was emitted from the core of the evil spirit. It was filled with resentment. Chapter 1625, The Power of All. As the evil spirit's mental pulse spread out, everyone became rather pale, whether it be the sainthood experts or the origin realm experts. Despair had even filled the hearts of many people. Even Jian Chen and the Spirit King had never become so stern before. Shock, disbelief, and some despair filled their cold gazes. They had never expected that they had only exhausted half of the evil spirit's power after so much effort and paying such a great price. It actually could not control the other half of its power, so it separated it from itself and hid it into a miniature world, controlled by a fragment of his soul, akin to a clone. The second portion of power was so great that it was completely equivalent to what the evil spirit possessed at its peak condition. Once the evil spirit fused with its second portion of power, it would return to its peak condition. Even if Jian Chen and the Spirit King worked together, it would be impossible for them to achieve victory over such an evil spirit. Not to mention how the primordial god silk that was particularly effective against the evil spirit had basically become useless. All its power had been drained, so it was unable to pose any harm to the evil spirit anymore. Are we really all going to die because of this crisis? Jian Chen's heart was filled with sorrow. Both he and the Spirit King had far exceeded the limits of the lower world in terms of strength, having reached godhood-level battle prowess. It should have been extremely easy for them to deal with the crisis of the world with their strength and the primordial god silk. However, the crisis had become more powerful than it had ever been due to the existence of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. It had already exceeded all the calamities that had appeared in various other lower worlds, so they were helpless against it even with their tremendous strength. It still can't recover right now. We can't let it fuse with its other power, or there'll be no more hope for us. We have to stop it no matter the cost, the Spirit King said with a heavy heart. Stop it? Jian Chen murmured softly. He gazed at the huge crack in outer space and became extremely grim. He had originally planned to imprison the evil spirit's core in the Anata Tower. However, its second core of power had begun descending, so the evil spirit had established a certain connection with it, which prevented him from sucking the evil spirit into the tower now. There's no way for us to stop it. The only method is to destroy the core of the crisis before it fuses, Jian Chen replied sternly. Destroy it? We've tried everything, but we still haven't even been able to touch it. How would you destroy it like that? The Spirit King was stern. Once the evil spirit fused with its other half, the Tianyuan continent was not the only place that would face destruction. The world of Forsaken Saints would not be able to avoid the same fate either. There's still one last way we can try. Even if it doesn't end up destroying the core, we've already run out of choices. We have to try it no matter what, even if we only manage to heavily injure the core because we've really reached the end of the line, Jian Chen said sternly. He sent his consciousness into the primordial god silk to control it under the Spirit King's doubtful gaze. The primordial god silk that trapped the evil spirit's source began to elongate at that moment. It shot off into the distance with unbelievable speed, disappearing into the horizon in a single moment. As it continued to spread out, the golden thread seemed like the trunk of a tree, constantly producing branches that forked away from it. In the end, it seemed to have become an extremely large golden net, enveloping the entire Tianyuan continent in a few dozen seconds. It did not just stop there as it continued towards the Sea Realm, Beast God Continent, and Wasteland Continent. In the end, the territories of all the races were enveloped within the golden net. From outer space, golden netting seemed to cover the entire planet. The net seemed to have expanded across every inch of the planet, without missing any parts at all. The threads of the huge net had filled all the streets and alleyways in populous cities. After the primordial god silk enveloped the entire world in the form of a net, it completely ran out of power. It had been completely drained, without a drop remaining. The core of the evil spirit trapped inside began to shake as well. The primordial god silk no longer posed any threat to the evil spirit at all now that all its power had run out. At this moment, Jian Chen became determined. He grabbed the strand of golden thread before him, and the chaotic force within him began to surge, channeling into the primordial god silk without holding back at all. It was transformed into the primordial god silk's power. Everyone, pour all your origin energy and saint force into the golden thread. This is the last thing we can do. Even if we can't destroy the core of the crisis, we have to deal a heavy blow to it. Even if this won't save us from death, we can't let the core of the crisis have it easy. Jian Chen's voice rang out across the world. Not only did it spread throughout the entire Tianyuan continent, it even reverberated in the Beast God Continent, Wasteland Continent, and the Sea Realm. At that moment, his voice could be clearly heard by the world. Many Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters raised their heads toward the distance on the Tianyuan continent, in the direction of the voice. They were extremely stern. Among them, the people who possessed specific backgrounds had already known part of the secret. Hence, when they saw the golden threads that basically filled up the world, they could already sense that the battle had developed to an extremely horrible level, so horrible that it required the power of even them, people who had not reached sainthood. At that moment, many people slowly held onto the golden thread and poured their saint force into it without any hesitation with heavy hearts. Of course, there were some Heaven Saint Masters and Earth Saint Masters who had no idea what was going on. However, they could sense the undefiable will within the voice that boomed through the world, actually making them feel like they had to obey. They grabbed the golden thread whether they wanted to or not and offered up their energy. At that moment, there were not only just Heaven Saint Masters and Earth Saint Masters who were channeling all their saint force into the golden threads. Even those below Earth Saint Master did the same. They did not have a lot of saint force and their saint force was extremely weak, but upon accumulation, it still became a formidable power. Chapter 1626. The bloodline of the Forsaken Saints. Among them were also some strong-willed people who were not affected by Jian Chen's voice, as well as those who just stared at the golden thread that had appeared from the distance in confusion. However, the gentle sound of a zither rang out shortly afterwards and those people who did not do anything yet immediately became dazed. Soon, they extended their hands and grabbed the golden thread like robots, pouring their saint force into it without holding back at all. This did not just happen on the Tianyuan continent. Even the many fighters from the Wasteland Continent, Beast God Continent, Sea Realm, and the various islands offered up their power. They poured all of it into the primordial god silk, and it was quickly converted into the primordial god silk's power. The crack in outer space grew wider and wider as the evil power hiding within the blood-red cloud slowly glided out. It slowly traveled towards the core of the evil spirit. The evil spirit could probably fuse with its second power in just a few seconds if this continued. Fortunately, only a fragment of the evil spirit's soul controlled the second source of power. The fragment of its soul was unable to use the tremendous power for battle, so the second core of power would only demonstrate its might after fusing with the core of the evil spirit. All the sainthood and origin realm experts rapidly paled on the battlefield. They had channeled all their saint force and origin energy into the primordial god silk as fast as they could, so they became weaker and weaker due to the loss of energy. After receiving the support of such great power, the primordial god silk began to glow once more. At the same time, as more and more origin energy in saint force was converted into its own power, the golden threads shone brighter and brighter, becoming more and more dazzling. Eventually, it shone like the sun, illuminating the entire world. No, no. How can this damned power appear again? I hate this power, I hate this presence. Hurry up and descend, my second half. Let us fuse together. A mental pulse filled with dread and urgency spread out from the core of the evil spirit. Even though the core was indestructible, it was also the evil spirit's weakest form. In its current state, it was able to ignore everything from Jian Chen and the others, but it was unable to ignore the power of the primordial god silk. The primordial god silk's power was able to harm its so-called indestructible core. The core of the evil spirit trembled more and more violently. It had finally suffered heavy wounds from the primordial god silk, dispersing at a visible rate. However, the rate of dispersion was basically nothing compared to the entire core. Making the entire core dissolve would probably take 10 days at the very least. However, the evil spirit's second half of power had already begun to descend from outer space. It enveloped the Tianyuan continent as a huge blood-red cloud, dyeing the sky red. Blood seemed to splatter across the entire world. The second half would fuse with the evil spirit in just a few seconds at this rate. Jian Chen, the Spirit King, all the Origin Realm experts, and the Sainthood experts raised their heads at the sky at this moment. They stared at the descending cloud. All their eyes were filled with an unwillingness to accept reality, but more people had gazes filled with despair. They all understood that they would all be doomed once the evil spirit fused with the second half of its power. Jian Chen smiled miserably. He had never thought that he would lose his life due to this crisis. It also filled him with a refusal to accept the truth. There were some receival protectors from the world of forsaken saints who had considered escaping this world to the saints' world. However, the opening of the tunnel could not be completed in such a short amount of time, and it was impossible for the evil spirit to just let them go. Fairy Haoyu had already stood up in the bright moon divine hall. Her eyes shone, and her face was stern. She said to Jian Chen, give up on this world. I'll forcefully open the passage to the saints' world by burning my soul. You can take those close with you to leave with me. If you don't go now, it'll be too late. Fairy Haoyu had already made up her mind to leave by herself at any time. However, she needed to use a secret technique if she wanted to leave alone, and she was not willing to pay the price so easily. She would also suffer the risk of having her soul disperse entirely. After all, she no longer possessed her peak strength. She was just a fragile soul now. If she could persuade Jian Chen, she would get Jian Chen to take the bright moon divine hall and leave this place even if she had to burn her soul to forcefully open the passage. The price she would pay would lessen drastically as well. If Jian Chen plans on being stubborn, I have to leave by myself even if I have to take the huge risk with my life, thought Fairy Haoyu. The Tianyuan continent reveres me as their human sovereign. I carry the burden of that name, so how can I abandon them and leave all by myself? Not to mention that I am not one who fears death, Jian Chen declined firmly. At the same time, a blurry figure appeared on the top of the elven god tree that remained rooted in the territory of the elves. She was the greatest god king of the god clan, Adriana. There's no more hope for this world. Looks like I can only abandon the clansmen here and leave with the war god, Adriana murmured to herself. The blood-red cloud rapidly descended from the sky. It radiated with a tremendous pressure. Meanwhile, all the Origin Realm and Sainthood experts from the two worlds clenched the primordial god silk tightly in their hands. They were filled with a strong sense of refusal to give in. At this moment, a saint ruler from the world of forsaken saints actually cut his hand as he had used too much power. Blood immediately began to flow and dripped onto the primordial god silk. It was actually silently absorbed. The section that the saint ruler held onto began to shine brightly the moment the primordial god silk absorbed the blood. It was even brighter than other parts. However, it was not that obvious, making it impossible to tell with the naked eye. However, Jian Chen had already refined the primordial god silk, so he had established a connection with the threads long ago. He was able to catch any changes to the primordial god silk. He became stunned when the blood was absorbed and immediately turned his eyes towards the saint ruler from the foreign world. Jian Chen's eyes immediately began to shine when he saw the saint ruler's cut hand. Blood can actually boost the power of the primordial god silk? But I've clearly already tried it before. The blood of my chaotic body doesn't cause any reactions from the primordial god silk, Jian Chen thought. He found it to be rather doubtful, but he still immediately gave out an order: everyone, cut open your hand and drip your blood onto the primordial god silk. Quite a few people obeyed immediately, cutting open their hands and letting their blood drip onto the primordial god silk. There was a portion of them whose blood did not fuse into the primordial god silk, but the primordial god silk absorbed the blood of the others. The primordial god silk immediately began to shine much brighter after absorbing the blood, glowing with an even more radiant gold. The changes to its luminance could be discovered with a single glance, and it became even more effective against the core of the evil spirit. It's the world of forsaken saints. The blood of their fighters actually has a wondrous effect on the primordial god silk. Not only can the primordial god silk absorb their blood, but their blood seems to be extremely nourishing to the primordial god silk. However, the blood from the fighters of our world has no effect. Jian Chen immediately beamed in surprise and cried out involuntarily when he discovered this. The bloodline of the people from the world of forsaken saints is not simple, the sword spirits murmured as well. The Spirit King's eyes narrowed, and he immediately cried out, "Quick, all forsaken saints, immediately let your blood flow and let the primordial god silk absorb it. This is the only hope to stop the crisis of the world." With that, the Spirit King cut open his hand before everyone else and let his blood fuse into the primordial god silk. The other people from the world of forsaken saints did not hesitate either. They all cut open their hands as if their final hopes laid on that and offered up their blood. As expected, the primordial god silk absorbed all of the blood from the forsaken saints. It did not leave a single speck. Immediately, the primordial god silk exploded with light, and its powers rapidly recovered. The evil spirit cried out miserably with the strengthening of the primordial god silk. Its core rapidly dispersed, clearly receiving great damage. Jian Chen glanced at the sky. The cloud of blood had already arrived above his head and would fuse with the core of the evil spirit in just a few seconds. At a time like this, the primordial god silk was unable to wipe out the evil spirit's core no matter how powerful it became. There's not enough time. Jian Chen's heart sank heavily. Chapter 1627, A God King's Assistance. At this moment, a green light shot over from the distance at an unbelievable speed. An illusionary tree had arrived in a single moment. Its tremendous presence of life permeated the surroundings and stopped the cloud of blood from descending. When the cloud of blood came into contact with the illusionary tree, it actually came to a halt. I'll sacrifice 30% of my life force to stop the evil spirit's power and buy time for you. However, in my current form, 30% of my life force is nowhere near as great as 30% from when I was at my peak condition, so it won't be able to earn that much time. You have 1 day at most. If you can't destroy the evil spirit's core in a day's time, then I can only leave here with the war god. Adriana's voice rang out in Jian Chen and the Spirit King's mind. The Origin Realm experts of the two worlds only saw an illusionary tree that levitated and shone with endless green light, stopping the descent of the evil spirit's power. They did not hear Adriana's words. Jian Chen immediately became overjoyed when he heard her words. Adriana was far more powerful than he had ever imagined. he originally thought that Adriana did not even have the power to interfere. She had been reduced to a soul after all, so no matter how powerful she was in the past, she would have become extremely weak. At the same time, Adriana was a god king from a higher world. Her status was more than enough for her to view those below her as ants. Why would she care about the lesser organisms of the Tianyuan continent? He had already witnessed this from Protector Shui. Protector Shui had ended an entire era in the past after all. However, he never thought that even though Adriana clearly had the power to take Tai Ta away, she did not do so. Instead, she sacrificed 30% of her life force to help them earn a day's time. Jian Chen felt rather surprised that a mighty god king would be willing to pay such a great price to assist people that appeared to be ants in her eyes, even after she herself had ended up in such a miserable state. But regardless of all that, Adriana's actions were a great kindness towards the 4 races of the Tianyuan continent and the various lives in the world of forsaken saints. A gleam of light flashed across the Spirit King's eyes. He gazed deeply in the direction of the wasteland continent before looking at the illusionary tree that had stopped the descent of the evil spirit's power. The light in his eyes flickered a little before he devoted himself to pouring his blood into the primordial god silk. At the same time, he revolved his cultivation method to quickly replenish the blood he had just lost. What is this? There is actually a terrifyingly tremendous power that can go against the crisis of the world? All the Origin Realm experts from the 2 worlds gazed at the sky. They stared at the ball of resplendent green light in complete shock. They were not the only ones who reacted this way. All the sainthood experts from the 2 worlds stared at the sky as well. All their gazes gathered on the illusionary tree hovering in the sky as they became both shocked and delighted. That seems to be the elven god tree? No, that's impossible. The tree may be extraordinary and displayed great power in the ancient times, but it's only equivalent to saint emperors. How did it stop the terrifying, evil power? The Origin Realm experts from the Tianyuan continent understood the origins of the tree. Disbelief covered their faces. That's the elven god tree. Since when did their divine tree become so powerful that it can stop the evil power? Even Sovereign Jian Chen and the Spirit King from the world of forsaken saints can't accomplish that. The sainthood experts from the 100 races all stared at the tree in the sky in shock. Disbelief was plastered on all of their faces, and some of them even rubbed their eyes out of doubt. They suspected that they had seen an illusion. The elven god tree had existed for a very long time. The various races from the 100 races were all familiar with its existence, but since when did it become so powerful? All of them became even more shocked and they sensed the unimaginably dense life force from the tree. The life force was just too tremendous, completely exceeding the understanding of many people. They could even vaguely feel that it could compete with the evil power. Quick, don't waste time. We only have a day. If we don't destroy the core of the crisis in a day's time, we'll all die, the Spirit King said with a heavy voice. They could only rely on the forsaken saints to destroy the evil spirit because their bloodline was special. Only their bloodline could assist the primordial god Silk. At that moment, all the people from the world of forsaken saints that had come to the Tianyuan continent got involved. All the sainthood experts, protectors, elders, and even the Spirit King offered up their blood to support the primordial god Silk. On the other hand, the people from the 4 races ran out of things to do as they were no longer of any use in the current situation. The primordial god Silk shone brighter and brighter before becoming a golden disk like the sun. It illuminated the entire world, outshining the blood-red sky and dyeing it golden instead. The core of the evil spirit trapped inside could no longer remain calm. It rampaged wildly as it shrieked out miserably. It was filled with pain. Its so-called indestructible core was shrinking bit by bit. Once it completely vanished, the evil spirit would cease to exist. This lasted for a half a day, and the evil spirit's core shrank by a third of its size. The forsaken saints who had offered up their blood had all become pale long ago. They were haggard, and many of the saint rulers and saint kings could not even maintain a stable footing. They were about to fall out of the sky at any time. Every single one of them had become extremely weak due to the severe loss of blood. Although their bodies constantly produced more blood, it was nowhere near as fast as the consumption rate. At the same time, it took a very large toll of their bodies to constantly produce new blood, severely exhausting their vital energies. Meanwhile, people constantly surged out of the tunnel connecting the Tianyuan continent and the world of forsaken saints. These people had especially hurried over under the orders of the Spirit King to offer up their strength to fend off the crisis. Jian Chen looked around, and he gradually frowned. Half of the time they had already passed, but 2/3 of the evil spirit's core still remained. If this continued, they would not be able to destroy the evil spirit's core in time. Although people hurried over constantly from the world of forsaken saints, their strength was nowhere close to the people who had taken part in the battle in the very beginning. At the same time, the original saint rulers and saint kings from the foreign world would have to stop after 4 more hours because they had basically reached their limits and were almost bled dry. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.